Hello, 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 everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you all doing today? Right, okay. So before we go on, quick question for you guys. So I know this is the usual lighting setup. How would you feel if for today's stream, we did this instead? Because it's very hot and that would help. Is it too dark? Anyone have an opinion? Because if you have an opinion, speak now, or I will be ignoring you. Dun, 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 dun. Cool, I'm gonna take that as a no. This is the lighting situation for today then. Me literally with an air conditioner unit in my lounge room set up with a fan in front of it, pushing the cold air to another fan, pushing that cold air down a hallway into this room with another fan and my ceiling fan in this room. Fuck, I hate the heat. I mean, I hate the cold more, but you have opinions, do you? What are your opinions, good guy Dari? Also, welcome to the stream. So, today, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of stuff we can look at, but I really, really want to start and watch the Peter Thiel interview with Piers Morgan. I heard it's funny, and Peter Thiel is a demon and one of the main crypto grifters that are new oligarchs in the United States. For those of you who didn't know, Peter Thiel is the guy who funds JD Vance. He owns him, basically. He bought JD Vance's Senate seat, and shortly after meeting Peter Thiel, JD Vance changed all of his positions on pretty much everything and became significantly more Hitlerite. So that's what we know about him. And then afterwards, gonna have a chatter. Come on with audio, and we're going to have a chat about some disagreements in relation to what I've laid out as my ideal political ideology. Yes, Herr Vance. Nazism that's not true. First of all, just because they called themselves socialist doesn't mean they were leftist. The very first thing the Nazis did when they took power was go after labor unions and other leftists. They took the communists out, the socialists out, the anarchists out, and then they cut all unions. They are about as socialist as North Korea is democratic. So, yeah, literally, there you go, Lenin. I just happened to beat you to it by like 3 seconds. Good guy Dari. I promise you, not a leftist ideology. In fact, some of the furthest you can get from leftist ideology. Just like how the CCP is not actually communist, just like how the USSR was not communist, Nazis were not socialists. Anyway, that's a topic for later and another time. We do have a lot of news. Tomorrow I plan to probably go long for stream. We'll see how today ends up, and depends on how long this conversation goes for, I suppose. Now let me just get this video set up. Because I am merciful, we're going to be watching it on 1.25 speed, mostly because A, I fucking hate Piers Morgan, and 2, because Peter Thiel is not very good at speaking. So let's have a look.
The center-left zombie establishment no longer believes in reason, in making arguments, and convincing people. The ancien regime that is liberalism is really exhausted.
Has the president-elect offered you a job yet?
I think politics is very important. I would find it deeply frustrating. I'd go out of my mind. I still believe...
Remember, this is, just so you know, this is a guy who said that he doesn't believe in democracy.
Science would fail unless it physically resurrected all the dead. We should...
Wait, what?
Yeah. I think politics is very important. I would find it deeply frustrating. I'd go out of my mind. I still believe science would fail unless it physically resurrected all the dead. We should, need, can work on this radical project, and then we have to somehow be honest and say that it has gone extraordinarily off track.
Do you want to freeze yourself just in case?
Maybe the way you achieve mastery over death is that you don't invest in new medicines, but you invest in eugenics.
Do you know how much you're worth?
First of all, yeah, let's start off with the fact that he just looks evil. I mean, he barely looks human. He looks like an amalgamation of a lizard and like an animatronic, like a Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic mashed together, wearing the skin of a human, trying to pretend to be human. But secondly, like, we've talked about this before in that, yes, I don't believe in making assumptions about someone's personality type based on physical features. Phrenology is not real. However, you really can tell if someone is evil most of the time just by looking at them and like, I mean, yeah. We can't make people's lives better or longer. We have to beat death for these guys to believe us. No. See, they don't care about making people's lives better. They want to beat death so they can make their life better at the expense of yours.
Death is that you don't invest in new medicines, but you invest in eugenics.
Do you know how much you're worth?
You know, I don't know, probably more than 10 billion, less than 20. Elon knows something about risk, the rest of us don't.
If I was to get hold of Elon, $1 billion.
The way that, no, you don't, Art. It's in your face. He fits the sweaty Nazi archetype, exactly. Now, Peter Thiel, also, just in case anyone was wondering how this man acquired his wealth, he was one of the founders of PayPal, along with Elon Musk, but also Ethereum. Was a cryptocurrency that he had a large hold in investing in. And there's one more thing. Basically, just crypto and PayPal, essentially. Yeah, piece of shit.
Each to charity, one game of chess.
I would win, assuming that you didn't find a way to use an AI to cheat or something like that.
Peter Thiel is a billionaire titan of tech, brilliant and terrifying, according to New York Magazine, uniquely influential and polarizing, says the Washington Post. There is, however, no disagreement over his profound influence on 21st century science, culture, and politics. Thiel was the first and only major figure in Silicon Valley to openly support Donald Trump back in 2016. Many more have since followed him, of course, and his mentee, J.D. Vance, is about to become vice president. The man himself rarely gives interviews, but I'm delighted to say he's agreed to go uncensored with me. Now, Peter Thiel, welcome to Uncensored.
Thanks for having me.
I remember back in 2016, I wrote a column on the day that Trump did his announcement that he was going to run, in 2015, actually. And I said then he has a habit of having the last laugh. But from the moment he did that announcement that he was going to run for president, all hell broke loose. And it's fair to say most people in your world at the time ran a mile from even...
I hate Piers Morgan because A, he's a jackass, and B, anytime anyone that's remotely left says anything, Piers Morgan like cuts them off or lets other people cut them off, but then will always go out of his way to like make sure the left or even just like center left adjacent person can't cut the right winger off. It's brain rot. It's nonsense. It's just biased media reporting from an asshole.
Hinting they might want to support him or endorse him in any way. You showed a lot of personal courage in doing that. What do you feel today, given he's just had this extraordinary win, a complete sweep across the board, given this enormous mandate? Do you feel a sense of vindication that what you saw in Trump
less than
8 years ago
1% of a victory
is now what so many Americans see?
Well, I always think that there are, I feel a sense of relief. I would be extremely unhappy if the other person had won. I think my expectations are somewhere
like literally 77 million to 74 million. Great. Congrats on your 1.5% victory. This is huge.
Properly intermediate. They are not.
No. It's the demon. He has to sweat. It's the skin that's sweating. It's actually really cold because anywhere Piers Morgan is, the room just kind of freezes over. And so this is the demon trying to escape the skin suit.
Not that we're going to solve all the problems we have, but yes, I think there is a way that the ancien regime, that is liberalism, is really exhausted. The 1990s are over.
Regime?
The 20th century.
Hold on. Oh, the
is liberalism is really exhausted. The 1990s are over. The 20th century is over. The 2020 election was not a return to normalcy, but it was, in retrospect, a last stand for the ancien regime with its
Biden still
very
beat his
ancien
numbers.
president. And,
I mean, that was a COVID victory, though. Trump would have won in 2020 if not for COVID. I see reflection from the light setup in me or in them.
And I think that's kind of what's over. And so these elections in many ways are more framed.
Joker Bravo, if you're 32 and you fucked up every relationship you've ever been in, then maybe try and learn. Like, what made you fuck these up? Stick around. And Theil. Yeah, no, he's like, again, the sweaty Nazi stereotype really fits him really well. Joker Bravo, jump in the Discord. I mean, we chat about this kind of stuff regularly. Not on today's stream, but I do talk about this kind of stuff. And if you want to figure out why and how to do better, then stick around.
That is liberalism is really exhausted. The 1990s are over. The 20th century is over. The 2020 election was not a return to normalcy, but it was, in retrospect, a last stand for the ancien regime with its very ancien president. And I think that's kind of what's over.
Ancien.
And so these elections in many ways are more framed by the negatives. And so if you ask me to make a whole bunch of pro-Trump.
So okay, wait. When he's saying ancien, just so you know, that's him saying ancient in French. No, I know you're not trying to be hostile. You're just talking about your experiences, and I'm telling you, like, you're welcome here, and you're not the only one with that kind of experience. And stick around. I mean, again, I talk about where a lot of these behaviors that both men, women, and also other exhibit, the reasons why a lot of us have trouble communicating, the reasons why a lot of relationships fail. I talk about them regularly.
Many ways are more framed by the negatives. And so, if you ask me to make a whole bunch of pro-Trump arguments, that's a Democratic question. I can make anti-Harris arguments. The Democrats were good at making anti-Trump arguments. And I think there was a way that this center-left consensus had just gotten very exhausted and wasn't working on many different levels. And in some ways, I sense that was already true in 2016.
I have.
And it is even more true today.
Yeah, I mean, I felt this election in the end came down
Bravo,
to cost of
try
living,
and stay
no
on
question.
topic for the time.
Americans were feeling the pinch in their wallets, and they backed Trump better than Harris to sort that out. I felt the immigration crisis on the border was clearly a massive issue for me.
I will never forgive the Democrats. Again, we're still talking about an immigration crisis at the border when there never was one. There was never an immigration crisis. Yes, the number of immigrants entering the United States was going up, but they paid taxes, they had jobs, they didn't commit anywhere near as much crime. There was no issue here. Peter Thiel looks haggard because he is the stereotype of the sweaty Nazi. He's a demon.
For many people.
And Joker Bravo, get out of that rabbit hole, get into the Vizora rabbit hole, and then we'll sort you out tomorrow.
But I also felt that it signified, and I think he was kind of hinting at this a bit, it signified the death of wokeism, of what your friend Elon Musk calls the woke mind virus. It was almost like the third part of the equation here was a repudiation.
Can anyone define what they mean by woke? Like, I know they don't have a definition for woke, right? Like, it's just woke is whatever, so you're a Nazi. Then no. Don't stick around if you're a Nazi. I'm a libertarian socialist. Look, the fact that we're talking about the end of wokeism is a right-wing talking point that's designed to try and sell the idea that Kamala Harris lost because she ran a campaign that was too woke. When Kamala Harris focused on zero, and I mean zero social issues. She didn't say the word transgender once. She dropped Latinx. There was no wokeism in this entire election cycle from the left. It's bullshit. Wait till later, Joker Bravo. I'm literally gonna have a chatter on and we're gonna talk about it. And National Socialist is literally Nazis. Like that, yeah, exactly, as Lord Fluffy Art said.
So much of what the woke movement stands for, which has often been based not on common sense or reality,
we're going to
but
talk
just a
about
kind of
ideology
nonsensical, I'm thinking when I hear them talking about my truth, for example, over the truth, stuff like that, or when they try and say that, of course, it's fine for trans athletes to compete in women's sport, etc., etc. When we saw the effectiveness of Trump's campaign ad of Kamala's for they, them, Trump's for you. You put all that together. Did you feel that the kind of the woke mind virus, for want of a better phrase, is not been killed off, but has certainly been massively put back in its box?
I still believe that the woke mind virus is actually a real thing. It happens to be the brainworm that infected RFK. It just makes you think that there is such a thing as the woke mind virus infecting you. It's just the other way around. You're already infected if you're worried about the woke mind virus. You have RFK's brainworm. Woke is bad, not the ideas, but the branding. Well, yeah, but also woke wasn't ever meant to be what it is. Woke is just another word that was picked up from AVE, American Vernacular English, and then essentially co-opted for political purposes from the left. Woke just used to mean that you were aware of exploitation and inequality. That's all woke actually meant. Good evening, Los Federales, and morning to me and, fellow Aussies.
One can hope that is the case. Certainly there are ways in which the identity politics as a political issue seems exhausted. It is Trump gained among both Jews and Muslim voters. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Why Trump gained among Muslim voters, by the way, is because they were running ads pretending to be Kamala ads, talking about how pro-Israel Kamala is in specifically high Muslim voter areas. They were just Trump campaign ads that were made to look like a pro-Kamala ad. It's fucked.
There are ways that 7% of the voters in the United States are African-American women, and maybe more of them voted for Harris, but 93% of the voters are not. And and there's a way that perhaps identity politics only worked in a pre-internet world. The 2008 Obama election was the last pre-internet election where and what happens in the internet is you can't micro-target voters. So in 2008, Obama could still tell the black voters they should vote for him because he was black. He could tell the white voters they should vote for him because he was post-racial, and people didn't notice that there were these two radically different messages to different sets of voters. By the time you get to Hillary Clinton in 2016, this sort of 1990s style micro-targeting doesn't work. She can't tell the women to vote for her because she's a woman and the men to vote.
Hillary Clinton would have won if not for the hacking, the John Podesta leaks, the FBI agents that dropped the ball on purpose, by the way. The FBI agent who declared that there was no collusion between Donald Trump and Russia in the Trump Russia hearings is now in prison for literally working for Russia, as well as the fact that after this, it's not that I'm defending her, I'm just telling you that he's wrong. She was a ghoul. She absolutely was. She was evil. I still voted for her though, but I am explaining the reality of there was foreign and billionaire influence that resulted in that outcome. And also PSYOPs. QAnon, for example, we watched the entire documentary on QAnon and how that was a PSYOP and how that resulted in Hillary Clinton losing, and how that was also a Russia-funded PSYOP. We just keep it in mind. Not that Hillary Clinton was good. I'm not defending her, but want national pride to return, remove capitalism, engulf everything with state control, full education for... Some of that I like, some of that I hate. And in about an hour, you'll hear why.
Vote for her because she's post-gender. That looks ridiculous. And then by the time Kamala tries to even have slightly different accents with different audiences, it all looks completely absurd. So I think that's one of the things that feels very different from 15, 16 years ago. Another way to articulate this, if we look at it from the vantage point of 2016, one would have, if you had sort of a demographic determinism, you would have said that the Republicans were never going to win another election because the Republicans were old and white.
The Republicans would not have won a single election in the last decade if Democrats just got out and voted. I do have I am also post gender. I do think we should abolish gender norms Gender abolition is based on that. Again, some of those ideas are good, some of them are not. Please, guys, stay on topic. I'm genuinely about to start handing out like 5-minute bans.
And the Democrats were young and diverse. And 8 years
Pay
from
attention.
26
This guy's about to own like a quarter of the country. This is one of your new oligarchs. This guy owns the vice president.
In 2024, a lot of the Republican voters were going to be dead. And because the demographics determine the way people vote, it would be impossible for Trump to even do as well as in 2016. He would do much less well. And the Republicans were never going to win another election. And so to win in 2024, there were millions and millions of people you had to actually convince to change their minds. And this was, it was Jewish voters and Muslim voters and Latino voters and women voters, African-American voters, young voters. There were all sorts of people where you had to make an argument and you had to get people to change their mind. And in some very odd sense, the center-left zombie establishment no longer believes in reason, in making arguments, in convincing people.
Literally, coming out of this man's mouth, don't believe in rational arguments or reason. The center-left, again, what do we expect from these people other than to hear lies the entire time? And I'm not going to spend my entire hour and a half debunking every lie this guy says, but...
And it just sort of gave away the whole playing field on that dimension. And and again, there were as you alluded to earlier, there were these fairly straightforward arguments about inflation, immigration. I would also say incompetence. Yeah, those were the three I's, and they were not engaged in. They were not rebutted in any way whatsoever.
There's also, I think, with Trump, I watched him at the Notre Dame reopening in Paris, and I was very struck by every single head turned to stare at Trump when he came in a room full of huge public figures from around the world. He was by far the biggest star, even bigger than our own future king, Prince William, and so on. And they're all desperate to.
You guys want to see the stats of what the Biden-Harris presidency actually ended up looking like? 12% GDP growth, 16 million jobs created, 1.6 million jobs created in construction manufacturing, lowest average unemployment rate in 50 years, income up nearly $4,000 after adjusting for inflation, lowered costs for some families. 20 million new business applications, workers filing for union representation doubled, $1 trillion in private sector manufacturing and clean energy investments. Not good, not efficient. This is incompetence, actually. Only 12% GDP growth, that's incompetent.
Hug him and shake his hand and be around him and so on. And it just reminded me that what Trump brings with him.
The issue with a lot of people, the reason why these people get listened to, is there's a lack of understanding that politics is slow, that bureaucracy is slow, that change happens slowly. Would Biden have won if Hunter Biden's laptop story wasn't suppressed? Honestly, yes. Who gives a shit about Hunter Biden's laptop? Nobody cares except for the right. Everyone on the left saw the Hunter Biden's laptop shit and went based. This guy has a massive cock and likes to fuck women and do cocaine. Good for him. That's what the left thought of Hunter Biden's laptop. Not a single person cared.
He brings a swagger. And I've always felt that America is actually at its best when it has that slight swaggering confidence. And it's at its worst when it looks like it's having a crisis of confidence. And I did feel that Joe Biden, in his increasingly kind of degenerative state, was exuding an air of a sort of a shambolic America, where the president couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet. I mean, do you feel that?
And Bhutan. Who of them aren't? They're all evil. I'm not defending evil. I'm explaining reality. There's a difference between defending evil and explaining reality. I just had to say this with Hillary Clinton. Oh, because liberals are civility politics pilled and are embarrassed by it. The left didn't care. Liberals cared. But who? I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Look, on YouTube, Nightbot is an asshole, and I can't fix it for some reason. So you're gonna have to hop into Twitch.
There's a lot one can say about this. There's something about the United States that is still.
Oh no, not this election, Comrade Lennon. I thought we were talking about 2020. And to be fair, Donald Trump's brain is just as much soup as Joe Biden's is. It's just Joe Biden has a stutter, so it's easier to see, whereas Donald Trump's a media personality for years and just is better at hiding it. They're both shit, but that could be said for literally all of the elites, the entirety of the capital class. Every single one of these assholes is a piece of shit. But explaining the reality of how each individual is a piece of shit specifically is still important. Yeah, the media talking about Hunter Biden for over a year straight. Sure, suppression fucking goofs. Exactly. That's why I don't even engage with those kinds of points, soulless death and despair, because I know that they're just like rage baity lies, and I'm not gonna get baited by that.
This I don't like the word exceptional country, but there is still something about it that is singularly important. There's some sense in which the president is the mayor of the U.S., but the dictator or leader of the world, and it matters maybe even more to the rest of the world who's president than to the people inside the country, which is much hard. It's much easier to do things outside the country than inside the country in a lot of ways, and so it's in some ways important to the whole world who's president. There are and there's sort of all these different dimensions where this is likely to manifest. Probably the free speech standards that get pushed, or the censorship standards. So many of these were pushed by center-left elements of the U.S. deep state. And you have the Brazilian judge who banned Twitter.
There are no center-left elements of the U.S. deep state. The deep state is the Pentagon and the oligarchs, and that's it.
Was he really acting on his own volition, or was this through a center-left U.S. State Department affiliated NGO? And there's a sense that all of these things might come to a dramatic end. So I think it.
Oh, by the way, for you, good guy Dari, Hunter Biden's laptop story, ABC News, October 2020, before the election. Washington Post, also this was March 2020, before the election. This one, 2022, after the election. New York Post, 2020. Pre-election, October.
In all sorts of different dimensions, it has repercussions for the entire world that are maybe even bigger than for the United States. And so, yeah, in a European context,
true, Lennon.
It's nobody really cares who's the president of Europe,
right?
Even though in theory it would seem like that's in theory pretty important. It's not.
Most people wouldn't have a clue who that is.
Certainly not in the United States.
Yeah.
The European Union doesn't
It's interesting when I've looked back at your
America
say last 25 years, quite hard, and probably deliberately hard from your point of view, to pigeonhole you into any classic political box. I mean, I don't think you're a classic Republican or a classic Democrat or any of these things. It seems to me
you're a fucking Nazi, like genuine, outspoken.
To sing from your own song sheet to a degree. I would say that Elon's quite similar like that. Joe Rogan is another one I would say is quite similar. Trump himself has flirted around really in the political edges in that way. Do you want to be pigeonholed? I mean, do you like to see yourself as a Republican, or do you prefer to be an individual who decides when you see a leader you like?
Well, I don't think either of those are necessarily. It's not. You don't simply want to be somebody who falls in line in a regimented way.
Welcome.
I don't think there's necessarily
It'll make it easier.
anything especially virtuous in being some eccentric individual. But what I try to do, what I aspire to do, is to think for myself.
Okay, just gonna pause this for a second to give you guys some background on this guy. Oh, there we go. So, Peter Thiel, Project Red Pill Tech Bro Professors, The Intellectual Dark Web, a primary source of ivermectin propaganda. This is from 2021, by the way. Strange new development through old claims about effective cure being suppressed by secretive and sinister forces are rising again. Some of the loudest voices promoting ivermectin are more neutrally asking why they aren't allowed to ask questions about it, or part of or allied to the broader ecosystem of intensely contrarian public figures who sometimes refer to themselves as the information dark web. A Silicon Valley of censorious, even prominent members are closely tied to Silicon Valley elites. Brett Weinstein, for example, an IDW figure near the center, is the brother of Eric Weinstein, managing director of fame investor Peter Thiel, Thiel Capital, not only himself a prominent IDW member, but one credited with having coined the term intellectual dark web. Beyond this, I mean, there's a lot, all right? He spread all kinds of conspiracy with like health related shit, but it's more than this. This guy outwardly has said he doesn't believe in democracy. I'll find some more clips while we watch.
Through these various issues, and then there are there are places where I've come to question the consensus, and then that leads me to what's seen as a eclectic set of views. But I try to approach things from a first principles point of view. Think things through very rigorously.
First principles.
I've known Elon for quarter century, since 2000, and I think he's a very thoughtful person. For a long time, I would have placed him as more of a not doctrinaire liberal, but certainly Tesla was an electric vehicle company, and it was more aligned with.
From Peter Thiel. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible, Thiel wrote in a 2009 manifesto published by the Libertarian Cato Institute. Since 1920s, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of franchise to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron, bemoaning the fate of the smart libertarians who he claims were so bummed out by the state of capitalism that they escaped not to alcohol, but beyond it. Literally, these are the type of people that pretend that their racism is like intellectual racism rather than just like regular old racism. I mean, look.
20s to Germany. I don't think we're ever in a cyclical world, but there are certainly certain parallels in the U.S. in the 2020s to Germany in the 1920s, where
don't know about his ex-boyfriend.
Liberalism
really
is exhausted. One suspects that democracy, whatever that means, is exhausted. And we have to ask some questions very far outside the Overton window. Again, I don't think we're ever in a cyclical world, but
probably not. No, genuinely, precisely what the Nazis tried to sell to Germany, that Weimar was too liberal, needed strong leadership to save it from degeneracy. To make this super clear, Thiel is doing at a talk to promote German philosopher Carl Schmitt, who was a prominent member of the Nazi Party. Yeah, so that's who we're watching. Also, dude looks like someone partially melted a voodoo doll. I still think he looks more like a Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic mixed with a lizard inside the skin of a human.
With the Democrats and with people who believed in climate change than with these retrograde Republicans. And so, yeah, Elon is it's sort of an extraordinary instance of someone who at some point decided he was going to start thinking for himself. And in some ways, he was singularly important in what happened the last few years in the United States, but then he was also representative of a lot of people. But I think there's some sense in which what the experts tell us, what the consensus tells us, has been shockingly incorrect.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just the COVID crisis, but there's a way these things have come to head in the last 4 or 5 years, where we have a sort of crisis of legitimacy. Who do we believe in the United States, in the Western world? Do we believe the scientists, the experts, the
I don't know who that is. I just looked it up, and yes, this is Peter Thiel. And also, Art, just hop into one of the voice channels on Discord when I tell you to, and then I'll hop in there as well, and then I'll just stream it out this way. My previous question was the following: isn't the whole point of war to cut the head off? Therefore, how are Zelensky and Putin still around? Why haven't they been unsubscribed from the planet? That's not the only point of war. There are a lot of different things there, but also off topic. The reason Zelensky's still alive is because Putin couldn't kill him, and the reason Putin's still alive is because we won't help Zelensky kill him.
Deep state actors, and I think there's an openness to rethinking these things that has not existed in a very long time.
Well, I think you and Elon are kind of their nightmare, really, because you've come along and you obviously have bigger brains than most of them put together, which must be terrifying if you're them on the receiving end, because you have this forensic laser way of analyzing stuff, which I see all the time from the stuff that you talk about in posts and so on.
Personally, just me, am smarter than Peter Thiel and Elon Musk combined? Just genuine intellectual ability-wise, the size of my brain, to say.
Play a clip.
Yeah, I don't like, I mean, this is Piers, this is a very flattering description, and I don't want to say that I'm that much smarter than other people or anything like this.
Around.
I think there are certain kinds of questions I've been asking for a long time. I don't know, just to give one example, where I've been on this for maybe 16, 17 years now, is this, this question, this big picture question about the nature of science and technology, and is it progressing as quickly as advertised, or is it actually stagnant, slow down on many dimensions? Where we still have had progress around the world of bits, but not so much in all these other atoms dimensions.
Hey, Soch now. And critical thinking is the ceiling to mankind. However, two people usually possess more information than one. Well, I mean, neither of these two have any critical thinking skills when it comes to anything outside of their own benefit. I mean, to be fair, like, honestly, all of these people are part of the capital class. They don't care about anyone but themselves and each other. They hate you. They want a better world for them.
And that was, in some ways, a straightforward kind of a question.
Their
idea.
idea.
It was a very big picture question. But if you said...
They can be, but these two are not. Well, actually, Theil kind of is. Musk is an idiot.
That we were stagnating on many dimensions, then you would conclude that maybe we can't just do business as usual. If you do business as usual, you're saying that the younger generation will have should expect to have lives less good than their parents. You'd expect that the whole sort of middle class compact in our societies, in which young people are expected to do better than their parents, is breaking down, and there's sort of a way that our institutions will not work and will derange. And so I had this idea that something has gone very wrong with progressivism in the science sense, progressivism in the technology sense, that things are not progressing as advertised.
Okay,
and this is...
Here's where we need to talk about a thing that you're going to hear a lot more as we get through at least the next 4 years of this, is they're trying to apply a scientific definitional aspect to why wokeism is... They're trying to, like, create fake science to say that being progressive is not only bad, but bad for you and doesn't work. They want to create an environment... Well, one of the reasons, they want to get rid of the Department of Education and their new plans for education is to remove the ability for people to have critical thinking, which they kind of already have succeeded in, and then go beyond that and bring you to a place where basically there is no class consciousness. Lenin was a class traitor mostly because of Trotsky. If you want an explanation, you're going to have to wait until the end of this video. We're going to talk about ideology after this.
It's not a, there's obviously normative implications.
But if you want a quick answer, the first thing that Lenin did when he took power was killed the anarchist allies that he had, and then disrupted like any worker-controlled unions, worker co-ops. He literally just dismantled all of the infrastructure for actual socialism.
But to start with, this was just a descriptive question. How fast is science progressing? And, we had the tagline we came up with was, they promised us flying cars. All we got was 140 characters. Not to downplay the importance of Twitter, and maybe you had to free up Twitter and change it into X to have any chance of getting back to flying cars. But things were stalled on all these areas.
Good guy, Dari.
And that itself was felt like a very taboo question to ask for a long time, because if these institutions were not working, that was a big deal. And this is always a kind of perspective I have on let's say the woke issues, the culture war issues, and things like this. I wrote a book in the 1990s. David Sachs, my friend David Sachs, and I wrote this book, The Diversity Myth, and it was sort of an updated version of a Buckley, God and Man at Yale, sort of a critique of multiculturalism and the politics.
It's a book that teaches you how to be racist while trying to appear intellectual, and racist for eugenics and more Nazi-esque science-y racist purposes. Not actual science, of course, pseudoscience, even some esotericism. It's the level up. It's like how J.D. Vance went from writing Hillbilly Elegy, where he talks about other racists around where he grew up and how they're dumb hicks, but he himself is also a racist. He's just the Peter Thiel type of racist, so he sees himself as better.
Of intolerance at Stanford University and sort of what had gone wrong in these college campuses. And we were focused on all these identity politics, political correctness, culture wars issues from 3 decades ago. And there's a way in which it was prophetic, and there's a way in which you don't want it to be prophetic. You want people to listen to you.
Peter, I have a clip.
They didn't listen to us, and then...
Well, I've got a clip of
we were
you
like Cassandras. We had these warnings.
Yeah, I've got a clip of you talking about that. Let's take a look.
Again, esotericism.
I'll tell you what the problem is with looking for racism everywhere.
He looked like even more of a Nazi before. In 1990, he looked like Stephen Miller.
Because when you start looking for racism everywhere and you start finding racism everywhere, it's only a very small step to finding racists everywhere. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if those racists are really out there, but I'm going to suggest to you that they really aren't. The problem...
They're not out there, are they? Here's Stephen Miller, by the way. This guy is the Deputy Chief of Staff.
Sure that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel have a free hand to follow the facts and evidence wherever they lead in ensuring accountability. If a government worker, if a federal employee has engaged in gross breaches of trust or law or criminality, of course there should be consequences for that behavior. But that has to be based on the rule of law. And President Trump has made clear there will be accountability.
He
There
does.
will be answers. There will be transparency. Facts will be uncovered and
Still
revealed to
don't
the
know
whole
if this guy is going to be a Goebbels or Himmler, but
American people. And he has absolute confidence in Pam, absolute confidence in Kash. By the way, knowing them both, they're incredible people, true, amazing patriots, to make sure that this process, these investigations into
so yeah, racism doesn't exist. Racists don't exist, right?
Forms of racism, sexism, other forms of oppression have been vastly exaggerated, and as a result, people get unjustly accused. A culture of complaint leads to a culture of blame.
I mean, apart from the fact you've aged incredibly well, because that's 30 years ago, what do you think when you look back at that, Peter Thiel? Because you were bang on.
Bang on, of course.
Again, I'm always a little bit more self-critical.
Again, these people are disgusting. One more. I found a better video of Miller being a Nazi.
In just 25 days, Colorado can shock the world and send Donald J. Trump back to the White House. This state is going Republican. This state is going for Donald Trump.
Give it a second.
And the patriots in this room are going to be the ones who elect President Trump to end the invasion, to end the occupation, and to send the illegals back home. Look at all these photos around me.
Just look.
Are these the kids you grew up with? Are these the neighbors you were raised with? Are these the neighbors that you want in your city? No, these are the criminal migrants that Kamala Harris brought into your community. And as swiftly as they came, Donald Trump will send...
Literal, like, Nazi shit, so.
I think I was right about everything, but then I also think I wasn't wrong, but there was a way in which I was not even wrong. And so the question I was not asking
What did you just say there?
was this question I just alluded to about, let's say, scientific and technological progress. There was a way the question of the universities was focused on the humanities, not on the sciences, and maybe one needed to have this much broader critique of what had gone wrong. For example, we just had in the last year and a half we had the university presidents, both Harvard and Stanford, were fired.
I believe you,
Claudine Gay, the Harvard one,
he had a stroke, did he? Is he like John Fetterman?
The sort of diversity plagiarist black woman, and there's sort of a very straightforward conservative critique you can have of Claudine Gay. But I think equally important.
Speaking of, I'm sorry to keep interrupting. This shit is important, but you said brain damage, and just John Fetterman tells Marr that the near-death experience from his stroke freed him, says the progressivism left me. Brain damage made me conservative. Thank you, Fox News. Which, by the way, it can. Damage to your frontal lobe can make you more aggressive and irritable. In your orbitofrontal cortex, damage can result in an inability to feel empathy and a general lack of regard for consequences or authority, impulsive behavior, and your dorsolateral cortex being damaged reduces judgment, planning, and organization abilities.
Was the Mark Tessier-Levine firing at Stanford, who was, a old white male neurobiologist, neuroscientist, who, as far as I can tell, had basically engaged in completely fraudulent scientific research, falsified his data, stole tens of millions of dollars from the government. And so the Harvard one was humanities fraud. The Stanford one was science fraud.
They hate
and
everything
I'm not saying the
now.
science fraud was more important than the humanities fraud. But they were in some ways different sides of the same
They hate academia. They hate epistemology.
coin. And the way the universities often would deal with the question, why are we not studying Shakespeare, why are we not reading the great books, is, well, we're doing science. The science is more important than the humanities. And the broader critique I would have is that it has failed across the board, and that even these areas of science that were sort of a big part of the early modern project, the atheist liberal project of early modernity, have gotten exhausted and have failed. And and this is sort of the extraordinary crisis that we're at. You know, and then of course, yeah, there are all these different versions of this one could describe.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you talk about the
I
flying
could
cars
literally
and things.
sit here and point out every lie, but then this hour-and-a-half video would take 5. So
I mean, I'll give you one example where we clearly haven't moved on. In fact, we've gone backwards fast, and that would be transatlantic travel. You know, I knew the great Sir David Frost, who was the Frost Nixon fame, and when he was doing a transatlantic show, one in London, one in New York, he used to get Concorde. It used to take 2 hours, 58 minutes to get from London to New York. He'd have breakfast in London, and he'd arrive in time to have breakfast in New York.
didn't we have a conversation on stream about why we don't still use the Concorde jets that were really quick planes? I can't remember why. Oh, thanks for the gifted sub, Piss Poor.
It now takes me 7 hours to do the same journey. That's 50 years later. And that's just one little example.
Yeah,
but
it's
you know, that's an example of what you're talking about, right?
Sure. Perhaps one of the paradigmatic variations of accelerationism was just faster travel, and
it's one of the reasons why this man is a piece of shit. But also, he doesn't actually believe anything, Piers Morgan, aside from just general malice and hatred for anything good.
Probably went faster every decade from 1500 onwards. Was faster sailing ships, and then in the 19th century was faster trains, then faster cars, and faster airplanes and jet planes by the 50s and 60s, and then you get the Concorde by the early 70s. And
now, Lord Fluffy Art, how many of the middle class are flying to Europe and back in the same day at all? How many of you have ever made a trip to a different country and back in the same day that isn't Canada for Niagara Falls? If you live like in America, if you live in Europe, that's a lot easier to do. It's insane, but it's also actually not even accelerationism. It's the enshittification of everything by capitalism as well. Piers is absolutely a clown.
In some ways, if you include all the low-tech airport security measures and all these things, it's probably significantly slower than it was in the 1960s. So yeah, it's a very dramatic illustration of where things have actually regressed. I think something like this is true of most areas of what we call science and technology. When I was an undergraduate at Stanford, I was class of '89 undergraduate, late '80s. In retrospect, it wasn't obvious at the time, but in retrospect, almost all engineering fields were bad ones to go into. You should not have gone to chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, aeroastroengineering. There was not going to be that much innovation in that area. You certainly shouldn't have gone into nuclear engineering. I think people had gotten the memo on that by the
Again, this guy's goals in life is like achieve immortality for himself and like his 5 billionaire buddies, and enslave the rest of you. Legitimately, he is an accelerationist. He is a techno-fascist in the sense that he wants neo-feudalism, and he's openly said this before.
1980s, and this world of bits
he wants
progressing.
A theocratic version as well. It's not just techno-fascist authoritarianism and feudalism. It's theocracy, because he's a Eastern Orthodox Christian.
In electrical engineering, there's still some progress in semiconductors.
There's some culty shit
but
going
really
on there,
the
but I
only
don't
field
really understand
that worked in retrospect was computer science, which in the 1980s was, by the way, a very strange field.
Yeah.
Computer science was something people studied who flunked out of physics and math. And you have to, whenever people use, I'm in favor of science, I'm not in favor of science in scare quotes. And so
as in, I'm in favor of science that suits my purposes, and anything that doesn't suit my purposes is air quotes, not real science.
Computer science was like political science or social science
vaccines.
Or climate science, where the people teaching it had an inferiority complex and called it science because it was not. It was sort of this, and then it was this very strange thing. This was actually the one field, where there was progress, but it was this narrow cone of progress around computers, software, internet, mobile internet, maybe crypto, maybe AI at this point.
Oh my God, Jesus
and
Christ.
there were some great companies that could be built. People could have successful careers in these areas.
Honestly, Lennon,
it was probably not quite
that's a
enough
real
to take our
possibility that we
civilization as a
just
whole to
kind
the
of
next level.
restart the cycle.
And if we measure it in terms of these day-to-day things like the
Not a
Concorde
high
travel,
one, but-
or if we measure it in terms of per capita GDP or things like that.
Yeah. You mentioned computer science there. So Google have just announced this Willow quantum chip, which they claim can solve puzzles. that would take the fastest supercomputer today 10 septillion years.
We covered this on last stream. It's not functional in the way that it's being described right now. We don't have like the science to make it work like that.
There's a number that actually exceeds the age
need
of the universe.
algorithms.
I can't get my head
It
around
does
that.
sound
Can you?
cool, but we talked about why it won't work. It's because we need to develop new mathematical ways of storing and reading data. We need to adjust the way that we store and use and distribute data on any kind of chip, on any kind of superconductor. And instead of working on a bit system the way we do now, we need to figure out a math to make these chips work in the quantum way as they're described. Science Now, the systematic study of structure and behavior of physical and natural world through observation, examination, testing theories against evidence obtained. Yeah, well, that's what this guy is literally against.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
I don't know. There are sort of
just like how everything is politics, everything is science.
Different things one could say about about computer science. It is an area where there has been.
He's saying that any science that doesn't fit within his framework is not real science.
Some progress. I think we probably shouldn't just dismiss AI. So it's often, like in some ways, it's a symptom of our stagnation that when we do have progress, we can't even believe that it's real.
I believe it's real. I just believe it's terrible.
So I'm not saying that there's been none, but if one asks what the significance of this is, there's a way in which you can try to frame it in terms of this sort of narrow technical question, or we can frame it, metaphysically, maybe tell us something interesting about the nature of the universe. But the intermediate question that I would...
What the fuck is going on in Syria? I've seen this being posted by like several accounts, but this one's an account that I've never seen post fake shit before. Now this could be fake, by the way. Like this could not. This is in Syria. Any fucking war video, let alone a video of the Syrian civil war, is difficult to actually verify, but I think he believes that science and capitalism have been shackled. He doesn't believe in science and capitalism being shackled. What he wants here is to go from capitalism to oligarchy and feudalism. He wants to frame it so that science is a problem because anti-science ideology is useful to these people and their ideology. This is a guy that spread COVID conspiracy theories. We just looked at him spreading fake medication conspiracy theories during COVID. He is anti-science in that he believes in science himself, but he will lie to you about his beliefs on science to achieve political goals.
Always like to ask is sort of the social, political, cultural, or even just economic question. Will it? How does this translate into higher per capita GDP? How does it translate into better standards of living for people? And that part is maybe there's some way it does, but it's pretty attenuated, pretty weak. That's the suspicion one has.
Is AI going to change the world fantastically well in the end? Or is it potentially, I interviewed Professor Stephen Hawking before he died, who said that the biggest threat to mankind, he believed, was when AI learns to self-design, it's all over. Do you share that fear, or do you think it's an exciting, brave new world that will enhance everything?
Well, I suppose utopia and dystopia aren't the only options. I think it is an area where there has been real progress.
Everything they say is a lie. Lord Fluffy Art, again, we're watching this. I'm hoping that you guys can do enough critical thinking so that I don't have to point out every lie, because everything they're saying is a lie. What are they saying, and how could it benefit them? How could the opposite objectively hurt them? Why would they say this? The truth can be riddled out if you listen to someone talking and think about why they're saying certain things. The 3 laws will save us. Stephen was wrong. Yeah, actually.
It is, there's a dimension of it that's quite extraordinary. It's, if we had defined the holy grail of computer science for 70, 80 years, it was passing the Turing test. And the Turing test is where you have a computer that can pretend and can fool you into thinking that it's a human being. And it's a little bit of a fuzzy line what the Turing test represents, but it was basically passed by ChatGPT in late 22, early 23, and so that is a very there is something probably surely very significant about that, and it has all sorts of repercussions.
Oh, great! Love to hear that, Los Federales. You don't think he's lying? Then you're an idiot, Ambugutron. This guy only ever lies. So does Piers Morgan, by the way. This is the capital class. Why would they not lie to you? All they want is your money and your happiness and to enslave you. That's what they exist for. They want profit. AI modifying its own code, I'm not a fan.
We should think about. I don't know if it straightforwardly leads to utopia or dystopia.
Right.
The negative way I would frame it is there isn't much going on outside of AI.
Lennon, that doesn't work really well because I have
the internet
good grammar.
and computers for the last 50 years.
And so people might think I'm AI.
And so if we don't get extraordinary progress out of AI, we're not going to get it by recommissioning the Concorde or anything like that.
And if I'm typing on my phone, I'll use the auto-like feature to add commas where they belong to as well.
And so probably too much is freighted on AI. And so the way, maybe one way to think about something like the Hawking or all these people, the way they talk about it, they are silently admitting that there's nothing else going on.
Right.
So if we need AI to lead to utopia or dystopia, that's sort of voce, you're admitting there's nothing else going on.
Yeah. I want to play a clip. This is of Elon Musk talking about you.
I am very judgmental. I'm also correct. You're also new and you're talking like you know anything when we've covered this several times. I know more than you about this man.
We've had our disagreements, but we are friends. And I would say for 95% of the time we've known each other, we've been friends.
I bet that 5% was rough, though, knowing both of you.
It was a little rough. Yeah, I think it's a little bumpy at one point. And I think I have more tolerance for risk than Peter does. So I was sort of maybe more kind of pedal to the metal, and Peter was like, well, let's...
2012. Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, is sick of paying taxes. He's not going to stand for it anymore. He knows that all land on Earth is already controlled by some nation or another. That's why he plans to establish his new country on the high seas. Thiel's an avid fan of seasteading, ultra-libertarian concept in which autonomous ocean communities... Yeah, bullshit. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. This guy hates you. He's a libertarian. In other words, seasteading would allow experimentation of all kinds of cool governments. Always want to live on an anarcho-syndicalist commune. How about a benevolent dictatorship? You can't say these two things, and it's bullshit.
Thanks, best be a little cautious here. He may have been right, actually.
A, is that characterization correct? Do you think he is a bigger risk taker than you? And B, A, is that characterization correct? Do you think he is a bigger risk taker than you? And B, is he also perhaps right that your way is probably more sensible?
I think I certainly would never want to bet against Elon. I would never want to compete head on with Elon. And probably a lot of what he says is correct. Certainly
look how he ties into the last election too. In the last election that Trump won. Palantir, the company that Peter Thiel is a part of and owns, was reported to have been involved in discussions over a campaign of disinformation and cyber attacks directed against WikiLeaks and journalists such as Glenn Greenwald. Later insisted that the project was never put into effect and its association with smear tactics had served as a teachable moment. These people have been around for a while.
The Silicon Valley perspective on Elon
shocker.
In the 2000s was that he was starting these
Did you see the mansion with Trump laughing it up at some football game? No, but that doesn't surprise me at all. And this everything he's saying is either retarded or a lie. Guys, come on, have some critical thinking.
Crazy companies. There was Tesla, the car company, and SpaceX, the rocket company. They both sounded super crazy. If only one of them had succeeded, one might still have said that it was just extraordinarily lucky. The fact that to first approximation both have succeeded, have wildly succeeded. I always want to say it tells us something that Elon knows something about risk the rest of us don't. So there's some way.
Yeah, he knows
it looks like
when he's too high on ketamine, he doesn't think about it.
It's this high wire, crazy risk-taking act, and somehow he it's somehow you can't have two companies succeed in such an extraordinary way without
drug takers
actually
are
really
often risk takers
not taking as many
well.
crazy risks as it looks. And so,
Especially
I don't know. There's,
regular drug users.
The conversation I've had with Elon is, what did you know about how do you understand risk in ways that the rest of us don't? And then I think there's something he understands about it we don't. It's hard to articulate. I don't know if he can articulate it, but that's sort of where I'm at today.
He has
that's what I'm trying to say, Lord Fluffy Art. What Peter Thiel does, what his rhetoric is intended to do to you, is to make the idea of science a partisan issue. They want to divide knowledge, intellectualism, data, science to left-wing science and right-wing science. They want you to think that you're intelligent when you believe them, that you're reading between the lines, that you're fighting the deep state, when in reality, they're getting rid of your ability to do introspection and critical thinking for this. They're teaching you to ignore facts. That's what he's telling you. He's telling you to ignore reality and believe in a false reality. So are they mentally ill? Just saying. Well, Peter Thiel, probably. But again, he's just like, Nazism has to come from some form of mental illness. I stand by my belief that one of the pillars of Nazism, which this guy is, even really fascism, if you take the Nazis away, just the pillar of fascism is misogyny. You have to hate women first. Hating women leads to more reactionary thinking and so on and so on. We've covered this before. Someone who's red-pilled is much easier to radicalize than someone who has I don't know, good relationships with women in their lives.
I mean, I met him for the first time in France this summer, and he did a little Q&A on a boat for about 15 of us, and then I had about an hour with him afterwards. Utterly fascinating just to be exposed to his brain close up like that. He was talking about colonizing Mars and why we had to do this and how it would be done. He talked about Neuralink, he talked about humanoid robots. It was just one after another of these enormous big picture things, all of which I concluded as I was hearing them. He comes from a place, it seems to me, he just wants to save the planet from itself, really. And he kind of has a brain that can get his head around this big picture.
Yeah, those exist too. Again, it's the same thing though. You have to hate women before the fascism, generally. It like leads into it. Even the women.
But in relation to the risk, it just strikes me, he's just prepared to back himself in a way with sort of chilling self-confidence, the like of which actually, I mean, Trump is one of the only people I've seen who has a similar sort of unbelievably...
It takes all kinds, but that is a foundational belief. Every single fascist hates women. I've yet to be proven wrong on the subject. Please provide me with an example of a fascist that is not like weirdly incel-y, whether or not they fuck. Because, you know, that doesn't matter. They just personally hate women.
The thick skin and self-confidence to do that, which is what you need, because there are so many people out there when you do...
Out of the people who said, yes, of course a woman can be a fascist, out of everyone who said Kamala Harris slept her way to the top, I only ever heard that come out of women's mouths. Those are fascists. They also hate women. They're anti-abortion. They're anti-trans. By the way, being anti-trans is like legitimately misogyny, because their ideology says that a trans woman isn't a woman because they can't like give birth. Therefore, women are specifically incubators and nothing more. And that is misogyny. Women can also be fascists. Fascist women hate other women and think they're superior to women because they accept their position in society. Well, they're the bootlickers, you know? I'll step on the person's neck below me to go up one rung and oppress someone below me so that I'm oppressed less.
Do this stuff, who want to knock you down.
There was a trans person that was a Jan Sixer. Same ideology.
Yes, that's certainly correct. And there probably are all sorts of ways that one can critique Trump, or one can critique President Trump, or critique Elon. There are all sorts of things where it seems hard to know how to get it to work, and the anti-arguments are probably pretty good arguments, but they're also disabling.
What's going on with MTG and Boebert?
I mean, you will never do it. So, you know, the challenge with going to Mars.
I promise you, they hate women. whether they're consciously aware of it or not.
Or even to the moon, is that you have to make sure, in some ways you're creating, a escape valve for humanity. There's some way, if we completely mess up this planet, we'll have a backup. And then, of course, the risk is that you will just replicate all the bad governance structures we have on this planet elsewhere. And if you think only about the science and the technology, you will maybe not straightforwardly solve this political problem that he's in part thinking about. So there's sort of all sorts of critiques one can have like this. There was a conversation Demis, the DeepMind AI person, had with Elon back in 2013, where
another piece
Demis
of
told Elon, I'm working on the most important problem in the world. I'm building a superhuman AI, and then Elon responded, well, I'm working on the most important problem in the world. I'm turning humanity into...
All of these people think that they're awesome. Again, they just want them, they want to feel like they're awesome. They want the public to like them. They want attention. Like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Donald Trump, these were kids that were like ignored when they were kids. They were bullied. They had shitty parents. They had maybe neglectful parents, especially with Donald Trump. We know that he had a shitty and neglectful parenting. But Elon Musk as well. These people, they want to use their money and their power to feel liked as well as be in control, because they have so much insecurity built into them that they're miserable. They all kind of hate themselves. And you think they're on level 2 and we're on level 1? Maybe if we're talking about ability to live because of money, but intelligence-wise, these people are fucking morons. They're like, I'm such a cool Sigma male who's gonna solve everything and be great. Meanwhile, they're literally, all they're gonna do is siphon all of your money and happiness so that you suffer. That's what they want.
Planetary species.
They want you to suffer.
And then,
so
Demis responded, well, my
you.
AI will be able to follow you to Mars. And then, in some ways, Demis won that particular exchange. And I want to say there's something important about the argument, but then on some level, it can't just be on that level, and you actually just have to do things and make things happen and build things, and that's the orientation Elon always has.
What do you make about him and Vivek Ramaswamy getting stuck into government bureaucracy and waste?
So here's a topic that you got to get a bit nuanced on. Government waste and bureaucracy. Both of these are an issue. However, the way they view it as the issue is the waste is programs that help you, whereas I view the waste as tax cuts for the wealthy, and the fact that Congress doesn't even know the military's, the Pentagon's full budget because it's too classified. And we already officially give them just under $1 trillion a year. So that's waste. Bureaucracy-wise, the bureaucracy in America could be fixed, but it wasn't really a huge problem. It was just kind of slow. Their plan is to dismantle it entirely. So we literally, in not only Project 2025, but what they've said, the people in the cabinets, Elon Musk in his Doge department, which is literally a 1-to-1 replica of the SS, the Gestapo. Yeah, literally just the same premise, the same type of organization. It's like they're following a playbook and none of you can see it. Well, some of you can, but some of you can't.
The strong consensus view in the DC establishment is that this is going to go nowhere, that it's just absolutely impossible to fix things, and
there should be no levels.
It's going to be sort of a very, very frustrating dead end. And again, maybe I'm not sure it's a contrarian view, but the alternate view I would say is you should never bet against Elon. And isn't there? We all know there's.
I think all of these people should be in prison. I don't think there should be levels.
Extraordinary amount of waste, and it is.
There are levels currently, but I don't think there should be. These people are idiots. If you're saying they're on level 2 and we're on level 1, I don't know where you're coming from with that aside from wealth and access to privilege. Sure, in that case, but I don't think that level should exist. Intelligence-wise, I'm just banning you. You're just contrarian at this point. You have no actual input in this conversation. All you're trying to do is to distract me.
unsustainable, and the 6% of GDP
Like,
deficits
I don't
that the
understand
U.S.
where
has.
these people come up with this bullshit of they're fighting with a fucking shadow version of me in my head, in their head. Positions I don't hold, arguments that I didn't make. Damn, you perma'd him, Lennon?
Cannot be sustained. They probably cannot even be sustained for, even the rest of this decade. And if this election stands for the proposition, there are two ways to resolve them. You can cut spending and cut waste, or you can raise taxes massively. And I take this election in the U.S. for standing for the proposition we're not going to go the European-style socialist route of having massive tax hikes.
He deserved it.
That suggests, you need to try something like the Doge thing, and that's actually what is going to happen.
Again, they want to hike taxes on you so that the rich pay less. They're trying to sell you the same idea that Reagan tried to sell you, and everyone after Reagan, every Republican after at the very least, of trickle-down economics. That if you give rich people money, they will spend that money and create jobs, and that wealth trickles down. We know that this isn't what happens. That money sits in a bank account, usually an offshore bank account, so they pay less taxes on it, and it goes nowhere. It doesn't come back to the community. Billionaires should be taxed like 85, 87%. During FDR's day, we used to tax like corporations and the rich much higher, and we spent that money on social programs. And those social programs help people, the general working class, who are in hardship, which allows them to get out of hardship and then make money, go to work. They can live their life happily and contribute taxes to the state, which then replenishes the funds that were spent on social programs, while also the billionaires still get to live rich in this scenario. It's not like the wealthy weren't wealthy under FDR. They were absolutely still incredibly wealthy. They just had to pay more taxes, and it worked. The moment we started cutting taxes on the rich and raising taxes on everyone else to make up for it, cutting social programs, life for everybody got worse. It is a transfer of wealth to the upper class. The Doge plan is to cut your social security, your Medicare, your Medicaid, veterans health services. That's what Doge wants to do. There should literally, I think if you make over $49 million, you should just be executed right now. I'm kind of joking, but like, I don't think anyone should be a billionaire. I don't believe in free markets. I don't believe in capitalism. I mean, I'm a literal libertarian socialist. So like, my preference is a stateless, classless, moneyless society. And if you want to know more about that and you're new, like Slightly Sith here, stick around, because after this video, we are going to be talking about that in more detail.
And, and
again, maybe we're in a very different moment from 5 years ago, pre-COVID.
I'll be right back.
I think the statistic is something like 94% of the federal government workers are.
Real quick. There we go. Sorry about that. It's like I'm too low on this camera. I need a cushion on this chair.
Working from home. And what people learned in Silicon Valley, where you had remote work for 1 or 2 years, was remote work was not working. When people didn't come into the office, they weren't working.
Remote work made people significantly more efficient. Statistically, like this has been studied, remote working made people not only A, more able to work, B, not only increased work-life balance, but C, also increased productivity and efficiency.
And initially, it was a sign of how powerful the workers were. They could insist on not working. And then after 2 years, the companies just fired a bunch of these people and reasserted control, because you realize, wow, there are all these people we hired and they're not working, and it doesn't matter.
That's
And we
okay.
can just get rid of them.
When I tell you that they hate you, he's saying that it's a good thing that these workers tried to unionize and strike, and then the company fired all of them, and how this is a good thing. Like, fuck this guy.
And isn't that the lesson that we should draw from these 4 or 5 years of the government workers not working? But not that they have to necessarily come back to the office, but maybe we don't need them altogether. And so I think we sort of knew this was the case in 2019. We really know it in 2024. And so there is sort of a natural rationality to what Elon is doing, and it's at the point where it's obvious to you, and it's obvious to me, and it's obvious to lots of people, and it's obvious.
Remote work is good because you could find a job and work at home. Yeah, remote work also made it so a lot of disabled people could work, but it also made people who had to, like, I don't know, wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and then transit from New Jersey to New York City for their office job, not have to do that. And then they got 2 hours more of sleep and they could just wake up and sit at their computer and start working. Or even the fact that, like, when you work from home, people are much more likely to even work longer if they like their jobs than they have to. They're likely to do paid overtime. My ex's mom used to work from home when I lived with her parents, and her mom would work several hours overtime sometimes because she liked her job. She wasn't getting paid for that. She just increases efficiency. Remote work was good in every way. The only reason these people whinge about it is A, control of the working class. B, if you work from home, they don't get to control what you say to your other coworkers. They are afraid you might unionize. And C, a lot of these office buildings cost a lot of money for rent and they want to use them. They spent a lot of money building these fancy buildings and they want you to show up to work in them. And yes, he's a billionaire. Of course he hates unions.
To all of us, that it's obvious to everybody else. At some point, you can get a preference cascade,
Lord
and maybe it's
though,
something can really break here.
He hinted that you and he had largely had a pretty good
you have to
relationship.
like the job for it to be good in any case. Like, remote work in a job that you hate will still suck, but I promise you it'll suck more if you're there in person. You can have structure via remote work, but yeah, if you're not self-disciplined, then I suppose that's a different issue. But like developing discipline and for ourselves emotionally and thought-wise and our behaviors is kind of one of the things that I regularly talk about. I make it a point to have all my virtual meetings in my underwear based. Canada's post office is on strike and the government forced them back to work. Isn't that slavery? Well, it's definitely not. I don't know if that's slavery. If they're not getting paid, then it's slavery. But if they are getting paid, then that's just anti-unions. Like, that's authoritarian exploitation of the working class. Most importantly, having the right to self-employment means having the right to do what the American dream is supposed to be about. Yeah, being able to do a job that you like doing and live happily doing so. That's not like that's not a reality for most people anymore.
But it had its odd wobble. You've got him and Trump, obviously two gigantic figures. The reason it's called the American dream. You have to be asleep to believe it. Quoting George Carlin. Healthy egos. A lot of people thinking this can't last. They're bound to fall out. There's going to be a clash. What do you think? What's your read of that relationship?
I don't know. Again.
Fuck me. It's been an hour and a half into stream, and we're only halfway through this. I wanted this to be done in the first hour and a half so that we could have the ideology conversation. Peter Thiel has like eyebrows like Matt Smith does. They're just really thin.
There are all these ways you're tempted to read it in these sort of soap opera terms where, we're focused on the larger than life personalities and how is there room for two of these people on the same planet, or you can ask all these sorts of questions. But I think if we take a non-soap opera view and go back to the substance and the real problems we have, there's plenty of work for them to do. There's plenty of them to focus on. They are, in some sense,
why would capital want to stop remote work when it's literally the most efficient thing to build capital? It's not. So they're perfectly, the capital class, social now, is always going to be okay with sacrificing increase in wealth and capital in exchange for an increase in power and control. And as well as like consolidation. They don't need more money. Like Elon Musk has $600 billion. Peter Thiel is already a billionaire. All they have to do is to ensure that you can never catch up, that you can never even become a millionaire, let alone a billionaire. And that has the same function of building capital. It's just in a more dense, consolidated form, and specifically taking the ability away from the working class. The anti-entrepreneurial philanthropist is one of humanity's most revolting societal creations. True. You sure these aren't just his goofy-ass skull structure? Well, I mean, possibly, but like again, that was Matt Smith I just showed you a picture of. That's a different guy. That's the 11th Doctor. He's British. I don't know. Like, this is
enemy.
Peter Thiel is South African, so maybe it is like a British thing, because I think South Africans were the British, right? Like the white colonizers. Was it the British? Just European descent generally, but where in Europe? Some Dutch and some British, some Portuguese, Greek, and German. Yeah, so it's a Europe thing. I agree Canada is the best at keeping people poor, and everything they do spits in poor people's faces. Well, Canada might be the best at it now, but just give us like 1 month, we'll show you how it's done in America. Spit in all the poor people's faces.
No, the zombie establishment, the stagnation, the sense that nothing's been working for quite some time, and I
mean, fuck
I don't think that enemy is going to go away anytime soon.
Has the president-elect offered you a job yet?
You fucking asshole.
I'm not able to. I'm not going to
wait.
do anything on
One more?
I'm
president-elect offered you a job yet?
I'm not able to. I'm not going to.
Oh, great. So we're going to get Peter Thiel in the government then, because of that little fucking waffle there and that smile. I mean, what else does that mean? He's absolutely been offered a role, whether it's an official role or a behind-the-scenes role. We'll see. But I mean, we already know he owns the vice president. So
do anything on a full-time basis. One can do things like what Elon is doing. You can't go full-time into government if you've been in a tech position like I have. It's just the sort of things you have to be realistic about what you can and can't do.
But is there an Elon style role?
Look, it's just not my area of comparative advantage. I think politics is very important.
Bullshit.
It's also
Elon Musk has been involved in politics for years, like not including buying Twitter and spending $44 billion and then an extra $285 million on top of it to buy Twitter and then buy the election for Donald Trump was not his entrance into politics. He's been talking to Putin for years. He goes to Russia, has had personal meetings. Apparently, Vladimir Putin asked him to turn off Starlink in Taiwan because Xi Jinping asked Putin to ask him the favor. This guy has been involved. He's sitting in on phone calls that Donald Trump is having with world leaders. Several of them. We've covered them like on stream. There's been reports. Donald Trump calls a world leader. Elon Musk is also on the line offering his opinions and really more of his demands, because Donald Trump is not in charge. He's a puppet. The man's brain is soup.
I would find it deeply frustrating. I'd go out of my mind if I spent all my time doing about it. So I think it's super important. I enjoy going on your show, thinking about it every now and then. If I spent my whole life thinking about this, man, I'd be depressed and crazy.
Do you know how much you're worth?
Probably roughly, I don't know. Yeah, roughly.
It's
hard to say.
I've read so many different figures. I mean, what would be the rough ballpark if you were to add it all up?
Too much.
I don't know. It's most of it is in illiquid private tech companies. So, I don't know. Probably more than 10 billion, less than 20.
I mean, that's a staggering sum of money. When you look at that footage of you 30 years ago, did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams?
He also has a fuckload of crypto that he likes to keep, considering he's one of the founders of Ethereum. So
that one day you will be worth, around $15 billion.
Yeah, it's.
Nobody should have this much money.
Maybe I imagined that when I was 10 years old or 12 years old.
Not a single billionaire should exist unless we all are.
Old. Probably not when I was 25.
You knew by then that you were onto stuff that was going to be wildly successful.
Wildly exploitative.
No, I think I don't know. As a young person, you can be very ambitious.
Others.
I was extraordinarily ambitious in some ways, or had extremely high hopes as a teenager, middle school, high school student, and then probably by the time I was 25, I had some kind of I'd gone to law school, worked in a big law firm, and probably had a serious quarter-life crisis by my mid-20s, where the expectations were so reduced from where they were when I was, say, 16 or 17 years old.
Really, that's fascinating. So when you were late teens then, what was the big dream?
Every man a king, every girl a queen, for you can be a millionaire. There's something belonging to others. There's enough for all people to share. Like I've said, we have enough money, just in America alone, if you count all of the money of the wealthy, for every single human on this planet to live at minimum a comfortable middle-class lifestyle without any need for work for decades, without running out of resources to do so. The framework nightmare that is in my head about this is that it leaves the methods that capital could get to control the worker and consumer at the same time. In an age of technology, you can make communications only viable through company. Well, I mean, that's the plan. So now that's what they want to do. Beyond that, I mean, again, we're counting down. There's 4 days left until we find out if the crypto fuckers rob everybody blind. I've talked about this before, and again, I'm going to make this clear. This is a difficult thing to do, but these people are all in the correct positions of power, required to be able to do something like this, and they have not only the desire, but it would benefit them. It's just whether they're able to due to competence. On December 20th, we have to have the US debt ceiling raised. There's going to be a vote on that. It has been floated around, and I do worry about it, though again, I don't think it's particularly likely that they might default on the US debt, crash the dollar all around the world. Donald Trump is launching World Liberty Financial, his own cryptocurrency. Elon Musk is in crypto. Peter Thiel is in crypto. Leonard Leo is in crypto in the Federalist Society. The Treasury Secretary, what was it? Bessent. The Treasury Secretary Bessent is also in crypto. They could theoretically crash the US dollar on purpose, then switch the dollar to a cryptocurrency. And unlike regular currency, once you mine all the crypto, that's it. There's a limited amount. You can't print more like money. This would give the people who own the crypto full control of like all of the world's wealth. You would never be able to gain more than them because there's a limited amount of said cryptocurrency. Whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's World Liberty Financial, whether it's a whole other one, it doesn't matter. They have the capability to do this. Again, whether they do or not is up for, I mean, we'll find out in 4 days, but they could. They really could. And if they did, then we're all fucked. 97% of current crypto investments aren't spent. They sit as investments. Someone owns 5% of all of the crypto ever made already. Just that 5%. So nobody will ever get that crypto unless that crypto is spent. These people all have large shares. This would benefit them. It's just a matter of whether they can manage to do it. They've said they want to. I mean, we've heard Mike Johnson talk about it. It's a possibility. Keep it in the back of your mind. Don't expect it, but
it's complicated. I think I don't know. I'm always bad at introspection and autobiography, but it was something like I was incredibly tracked. And, my junior year, 8th grade yearbook, my best friend wrote in it, 4 years from now you're going to go to Stanford. And then I went to Stanford and I got into Stanford Law School and I got into top law firm.
Yeah, but John Oliver spends his money well. Like, I'm okay with John Oliver being worth that much money because John Oliver would absolutely, happily, openly redistribute his wealth if socialism was a thing. He would be on board. Also, John Oliver spends like his money on stuff for his show. Like he tried to bribe Clarence Thomas to step down from the Supreme Court with a really, really nice what are they called? The big buses that you can live in, not like a trailer, but like a luxury fucking cross-country trailer type thing. He was offering Clarence Thomas, be like, hey, step down and I will give you this incredibly luxurious trailer, to motor coach, yes, RV, thank you, that was the word, because apparently Clarence Thomas loves to drive RVs. He has his own, he talks about how much he loves it and is old. So that was the bribe, was here. Since you're allowed to take bribes, here's a brand new, incredibly expensive RV that you can have. And if you take the deal, I'll also give you $1 million a year. Clarence Thomas just didn't take it. That's how John Oliver spends his money. That it was like a $3 million RV that they all ended up auctioning off for much cheaper to some other people. And then $1 million a year for Clarence Thomas to step down from the Supreme Court. That would have been worth paying that much. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're horrible. But after a certain amount of money, it starts to rot your brain. And when you reach the billions, it just produces mental illness. Having $1 billion is directly correlated with mentally declining in your ability to empathize with other human beings.
And
It's
then
essentially
from
brain
the,
damaging.
outside it was a place where everybody wanted to get in. From the inside it was a place where everybody wanted to get out. And there was some way. That.
I mean, isn't the Vatican technically its own country?
Maybe it's a harsh way to put it, but that I was too caught up in the status, the prestige of these conventionally tracked careers, and then at some point, I in my mid to late 20s shifted back to Silicon Valley, became an investor, entrepreneur, and was able to somehow restart my life. But yeah, there's I don't know. I have all these crazy critiques of the universities, but I think the critique of the elite universities, the Stanfords, the Harvards, the Oxbridge ones in the UK, is that they are really shortchanging the elite. And if you look at your average Stanford student, how ambitious they are the day they get in, and how ambitious they are 2, 3, 4 years after they graduate, so 6 to 8 years later, it is a catastrophic decline. And what's basically beaten into you in these places is a loss of agency, a sense that you can't do anything. The kinds of things people are taught to aspire to.
Literally every accusation is a confession from these fucking people.
Are especially bad dead-end careers. So it's probably somewhat reduced, but there was always sort of this prestige of becoming a professor, and then you get caught up in this
they're gonna
crazy
fire
sort
a
of
bunch of professors, right? Day one is the purge, where they're going to remove teachers, university professors, medical professionals, literally anybody that goes against their line of thinking. They do have a temporary seat at the UN too. I mean, the Pope's been pretty based right now. I mean, calling Gaza a genocide, been pretty pro-queer rights. I mean, it's the Pope, so he's not exactly a good person, but yeah.
Malthusian world where even the winners are kind of loserly. So yeah, I think there's something about the socialization of these institutions that's really destructive of ambition and that has really not served our society as well.
Best and worst thing about being extremely rich?
Again, I'm not good at. I'm so bad at this introspection stuff.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising. Again, bad at literally just like a self-report there. They all have an inability to do any kind of introspection. Being a right-winger requires you to not have the ability to introspect, to do critical thinking, and to have emotional stability, emotional intelligence. They're all reactionary. Now, this guy, he's at the top, right? So he's not as dumb as the brainwashed population that they produce. He's just a demon. I mean, look at him. He literally is the sweaty Nazi archetype.
It is.
All of Trump's kids are fucking incredibly rich. Don Jr. joined the board of a company, I can't remember what company, a week ago, and that company's stock prices went up 106% that day.
One always has the illusion that that money can solve all problems, and it obviously it can't. And then there are
solve some of your problems.
There's sort of all these ways that it's probably in some ways it's a good thing to have money. In some ways, in some ways it's socially isolating. In some ways you don't. One doesn't even want to be fully aware of how much it's changed, how much it changes the relationships with people. And so so there are all sorts of things about it that are extreme and strange. But I try. There's sort of no straightforward ways to deal with it. You can, if you just become sort of a paranoid rich person where you don't trust anybody, that seems like a high cost. And
this is the kind of people that Peter Thiel used to support. This is 2020. Source described to me how a recipient ranging from alt-right men's rights advocates, Mike Cernovich, to neo-Nazi troll We've benefited from the financial structuring, routing money from Peter Thiel's Thiel Capital by way of Jeff Geiser into the specifically formed LLC. The guy's very much pro-fucking Nazi.
And then I sort of probably err in the direction of being an unself-aware rich person who wants to pretend that nothing has changed at all. And that's I'm self-aware enough to know that that's not correct, but I'm not self-aware enough not to do that.
I heard somebody, it was a celebrity, a big actor, I can't remember who it was, and they said when you get really famous, it's not you that changes, it's everybody else in your world changes, because they find it really hard to adjust to suddenly you being very famous.
Apparently, both Peter Thiel and Leonard Leo have connections to Opus Dei, which is a cult. It's like a Catholic cult, but it's mixed with like the Catholic Church and like Eastern Orthodoxy. This shit I know nothing about, so if anyone does, you let me know. But they're I mean, they're evil, and there's a lot of people in government now that are in relation to Trump that have some connection to Opus Dei. Even Elon Musk, I believe. But I mean, I don't really like to go into the religious conspiracy rabbit hole. But if anyone knows anything like confirmable on that, let me know, because I'm not gonna give myself the brain damage of reading it.
Famous. Is it the same kind of thing when you get very rich? It's like very successful. Is it not really about you? It's more about everybody.
They'll do the rug pull on election day, I imagine. I think if you sell now, probably a good idea. But you probably do have a couple days, but realistically, sell now while you have like gain. Don't risk it any further.
Around you.
Yeah, that's always what people say. I don't know if we should trust them. You know, it's
probably a bit of both.
Yeah, that's obviously what the celebrities would say about fame and what you know the billionaires would say about money. That it's always about other people. But it's probably always not about just other people or about yourself. But it's always this complex social relationship.
You sold your Facebook shares. You were obviously on the board there for many, many years. You were one of the first investors. You sold your shares for $638 million in 2012 when the IPO came up. Had you stuck with them, you would have made another $2 billion. Does that eat away at you, or given that you've got another 15, does it not really touch the sides of your sleep pattern?
Yeah, literally, please listen to Lenin. Fuck crypto. It's a scam. And also, gambling is bad. Like, really, really bad. Don't gamble. And also, don't use the poly market, because guess who owns the poly market? It's this motherfucker. So all of you that were betting on the poly market during the election, look who you were giving money to. The guy who owns JD Vance. Listening to these two cunts talk is like listening to my mom and sister talking about scolding a lady for having an abortion. Accurate, yeah. I
don't. Yes.
There's a part in this where he gets asked about Luigi Mangione, and I want to hear it. Opus Dei makes QAnon look like a high school creative writing classroom in comparison. Is it real though, Oxpecker? Like, as in, like, it does not what is not what they believe real, but like, or do they do so shit? Or how present are they? Genghis Khan, he's shiny because he's glazed in sweat. It's the demon trying to escape the skin suit. He's like Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3, produces so much heat because inside he just has the hells in where his heart's supposed to be.
I think one of the things that was very hard to gauge on the big tech companies, and there was a way I understood it and a way I did not, was just how they were going to scale and scale and scale, and how the returns to scale were so enormous. And I don't know, you could think of it in almost a fractal sense where you add one digit to the market capitalization of the company, and how hard is it to add a digit? How hard is it to go from a company worth 10 million to 100 million? Facebook was worth 5 million in 2004. It was worth.
Oh, look, advertising for Theil's company, along with photos of Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, JD Vance, Elon Musk at a sports game. I guess, like a Army versus Navy sports game. They're advertising this at government events. His company. I wonder why. And thank you, Oxpecker.
85 million in 2005, 525 million in 2006, 15 billion in 2007. It whittled it sideways, was worth still around 10 billion in 2009, around 100 billion at the IPO in 2012. Today it's 1.5 trillion. And probably the incorrect view I had back in 2012 was that it was fractal up to 100 billion. So you could go from 10 to 100 million to a billion.
There's sections here. So on fatherhood, radical life extension, and then the murder of Brian Thompson. Let's just skip to there because I don't really care about his. Actually, you know what? It is important to listen to what kind of a father he is. We could just skip on the rest of his money.
And has fatherhood changed you as a man?
I mean, as we saw that Elon Musk is a shitty father, so I imagine the same is here.
It certainly gives you it gives you a very different perspective. It pushes you to ask questions you weren't asking before.
Like what?
Thank you.
There's something about kids that's always extraordinary. Where in some ways you see yourselves in them. There are ways in which they each are their own unique individual person. There's something extraordinary about.
Now, I don't know if Theil's a pedophile, but I do know that Elon used to hang out with Diddy at his parties a lot.
How 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old experiences the world for the first time, and there's a sense of wonder, and there's a way you get to vicariously, or you get to participate in that some as a parent. So it's there's sort of a way that there's obviously a lot of complexity around children, and there are a lot of different ways in which people find it hard or choose not to have children, but there is sort of a way in which
it does happen rarely.
As an adult, there's always
Lord
a risk that you
Fluffyard.
get caught up in this sort of adults-only world that has sort of a Groundhog Day quality to it, and there's a way in which the children bring one back to reality. And of course, it gives you some very different perspectives on the future.
See, what I hear from this in where he said, like, you have your adults only reality and then you come back to your children and it brings you back to real reality. That's not a healthy way to be a parent, but to think. You shouldn't be separating your experience of life interpersonally to your experience of life outside of your home. That should all be your life. You shouldn't be shifting to your perception of reality based on whether you're at work or whether you're at home. They could set his bail at $100 million, and a GoFundMe would pay for it by next Friday. Yeah, unfortunately. No one will, though.
I wasn't sure that the world was going to last till 2030.
Right.
Let's try again.
My oldest, will be 81 years old in the year 2100, and man, it's.
Yeah, like no one's gonna do that. Like they're not freeing Luigi. He's not getting out. You know what? You know why Luigi's not getting out? Let me play this and I'll find it because it's fucking wild.
That the world was going to last till 2030.
Right.
Before I had her, and I'm still not sure, but we're gonna have to somehow figure out a way to make it through the 21st century.
There's a lot of rumors that you are dedicated to living a very long time and defying the aging process, that you're quite obsessed about it all, and you have all sorts of weird
There you
little...
go. Sorry. This is why Luigi's never getting free. Kathy Hochul is holding a therapy session with 175 corporate reps, CEOs, to calm the nerves of the New York business elite in the wake of Brian Thompson's killing, promising state assistance for corporate security to combat domestic terrorism. Demonization of corporate executives is not news, said Kathy Wild, CEO and president of Partnership for New York, who's leading the outreach meetings. State officials went to calm the nerves of New York City business elite. Kathy Hochul will broker a virtual meeting on Tuesday with state law enforcement officials and about 175 corporate representatives to discuss security resources. Catherine Garcia is managing the effort. Kathy Wild, the CEO, has been a president for Partnership for New York, has been the business world's point person. In an interview on Thursday with MSNBC, Hochul said that the meeting will be proactive. State officials plan to show how they can provide law enforcement intelligence in a case a specific sector is being targeted. We protect everybody on the streets of New York, not just the CEOs, they said. They literally don't care. Yeah, they're having a therapy circle for rich assholes because the rich are scared of a class uprising. So do with that information what you will. This is pussy shit, but also this just shows you that they don't like you. By the way, Luigi getting arrested the way that he did, you think that like the photo of the McDonald's that he was reported in barely looks like him. Like I'm sure these people were like, the government was using tech they're not legally technically supposed to use to find this guy, because nobody was going to rat him out. You think that from this picture, this is the photo that they identified Luigi in and reported him? Do you really think that's true? Do you really think that's true? She took particular notice of his eyes and eyebrows. The guy was wearing a mask and took it off for a second. Like, I'm not saying that that's not what happened. I'm just saying that it's not particularly believable to me. And that I would need some evidence to see that that's true. Yeah, I'm calling cap, but I'm not 100% on that. I mean, you can prove it to me, but I really, like, we know that the government can track your phone. We know that they have fucking, what was it, Prism? I found 2 videos about it from the same person. Thanks, I'll have a look at them.
Routines and potions and stuff. Any of that true? You're looking extremely good, Nick.
Oh, these are long, so I'll probably cover them.
I don't know if I have any particularly strong
Thank you, though.
insights into it. I do think that one of the great projects of early modernity was the radical life extension project. There was a personal immortality version of it. There was sort of, or at least this idea that all sorts of diseases would be cured. I still believe in that project as something that we should be working on very hard as a society.
You sent me the same video twice, Oxpecker.
I can at the same time, believe that project has gone very sideways, and there are ways in which we're really not succeeding at it, there's sort of all sorts of ways where it's somehow the descriptive level and the normative level can be very, very disconnected, and so it's I don't know,
literally you people are doing
all sorts of specifics, but it's sort of like Nixon declared war on cancer in 1971. It was going to be, the goal was to cure it by the U.S. bicentennial by 1976. So we're now 53 years in, and
unless he freezes
it feels like it's
himself.
way more than 5 years away, and so so there's sort of
look again. These people are about to be untouchable. You do realize that, right? Did you not catch in that in the therapy meeting for business leaders that we just looked at, them talking about using intelligence to make sure that no one is targeting specific business sectors and increasing security around corporations and CEOs? We're about to have cyberpunk style Militech protecting all of the corporations.
It would be desirable for us to cure it, and then at the same time, we're in this world of too much science propaganda that hasn't quite worked. I think there's something extraordinary about the failure to make progress on things like dementia.
Yeah.
So there are all these different areas where we could be making much more progress. If you do a bigger cultural history on this, you could say early modernity in the 17th, 18th century forms. The mainstream scientists believed in the radical life extension project. It was Sir Francis Bacon, it was Condorcet, it was Benjamin Franklin in the United States. And then by the 19th and 20th centuries, this becomes maybe it becomes more of a fringe science view, but it's still sort of a part of it. It has there's sort of religious dimensions to all this stuff where it's in some ways it's downstream of Christianity, in some ways it's Christian, in some ways it's anti-Christian, because Christianity tells you that death is not natural and that we can all have hopes to be physically resurrected. And then if science was either downstream of Christianity or competing with Christianity, science had to also solve this problem.
This is
and so this was one of the things that science had to do. And
science and Christianity do not ever need to be competing. They are not equal. They are not anywhere near relevant to each other. Fuck your religion when it comes to A, science, B, government, C, education. I don't care. And Fox, I hope you're trolling.
Things that was still had a decent number of adherents was early 20th century Russian movement that sort of adjacent to communism was this thing called cosmism. And the cosmists in the 1910s, 1920s argued that science would fail unless it physically resurrected all the dead. And because it was directly competitive with Christianity, but then in some ways Christianity also set the normative standards.
Can I vote yes on the boring poll?
That death should not be natural.
Okay,
death should be
fine.
fought.
Let's
death was fundamentally wrong and evil.
Skip to Brian Thompson,
not natural,
and then I'll have Art on, and we can talk about socialism.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about the two stories in the news this week, one of which you got dragged into just by circumstance. But the first one was the incident on the subway.
I think that he's a techno-fascist demon that hates you and wants to suck every bit of joy, happiness, wealth from your life personally and make you suffer.
This Marine veteran who restrained somebody who then sadly died, who's just been acquitted. What did you think of that story? Because it seemed to me, if we went back 20, 30 years, this guy would have been immediately lauded as a hero.
Do you think Elon Musk is smart? Because I don't think he's smart. I think he's an idiot. I think his ideology is entirely reactionary. He said in this interview moments ago, maybe 20 minutes into the stream ago, oh, I'm not very good at introspection. He's not smart. The guy's a fucking moron.
Concerted effort on the left
He's
to paint
just
him in...
He's just smart at being evil. He's good at evil. Well, he got rich off of PayPal, which wasn't really self-made, because that was luck with Elon Musk. And then he founded a cryptocurrency that is a scam, and now he uses it to do other scam shit in Silicon Valley. He owns the VP. He's good at being evil. You can be smart in one specific area, but generally an idiot. Yeah, Lord Fluffy Art. Workers made him rich, not himself. Yeah, he did no labor. One of the most influential people of our time, pulling strings everywhere. Yes, idiots. Elon Musk is also one of the most influential people of our time, pulling strings everywhere, and he's fucking retarded. So is Peter Thiel. They're good at being evil. They're good at exploiting workers. That doesn't make them smart.
Immediately as a white supremacist, a villain,
you
a criminal,
can't be
a murderer,
a
and so on.
right-winger and be
From
intelligent.
people like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and right the way down. What did you make of that story?
Not really. Not unless you have no empathy.
And I always don't know enough about the particulars of these stories, and then it somehow matters.
No, you have to be a psychopath to be smart if you're evil. That's it. Like, you can be evil and smart, but that requires a full lack of empathy. Like, you are a demon. You're basically not human. You don't have the ability to interact with other humans on an emotional level. Then you can be smart and rich. Smart and evil, rather. You can be rich whether or not you're smart. Like, I'm smart when it comes to history and economics, but I'm an idiot and everything else. You're 17, that doesn't count. You're still learning. There are many other lies and many words and many forbidden goods. I don't know what that's a reference to. This guy is a fucking lizard human.
Matters. The specifics matter a great deal.
Right. Barely
but yes,
human.
So with the caveat that I don't know that much about the particulars on it, my instincts are that if we don't have people like that standing up against crime in a sort of citizen's capacity, I don't think of him as a vigilante. I think of him as a crime stopper, and you'd have you'll have a far more violent world if you stop people like that than if you if you don't. And so that's where I think the intuition
don't be a vigilante and shoot rich people.
Seem very, very wrong.
Yeah.
And then I don't the AOC thing seems so great. It's almost like you want to create more crime, you want to create more chaos, or something like that. And I don't know if it's fully that intentional, but that's
AOC
what
wants to create more crime and chaos. Yes, of course, that's true.
A Democratic congresswoman would go on record as calling it immediately murder, is what she did. And you think, what message are you sending to people who are on a subway that is already crime-ridden, and you see something like this happen, you see women and children terrified.
Was murder.
9 out of the 11 witnesses.
That was murder. I don't care what the jury said. I don't care that he wasn't convicted. He is literally a Nazi. Sorry, he's literally committed murder. That cop. This guy's a Nazi. Sorry. I got distracted by reading. You're kind of sounding like a Nazi right now. Why are you dehumanizing such a political mastermind? Yeah, exactly. Using their ideology in any way, but directing it at them, then I'm being a Nazi. But if I call them a Nazi, then I'm overusing the word Nazi, and I don't really know what it is. Fuck not being a vigilante. Batman is based. Wait, bad example. Daredevil is based. No, the Punisher is not, because every cop in America personally thinks that they're the Punisher, and that's one of the biggest problems with the police in America. I'm not even fucking kidding. Go look at how many police officers have a tattoo of the Punisher. Who said National Socialist? Where's the Nazi that I need to ban?
Terrifying thing that ever been exposed to on a subway, and you get this one guy who intervenes and stops what may have been a horrific incident, and he's branded a murderer by a lawmaker in America. And you just think, well, what message are you trying to send to people? That you can never intervene to try and protect women and children on a subway? Is that really what you want to say to Americans? I just found that the most baffling part of it.
That's true. Hateful sadist.
Yeah,
but all of them think they are.
It's probably incorrect to impute too much intentionality to it. I always wonder whether it's a crazy version of liberal elitism, a la the ridiculous Mayor Bloomberg of New York and things like this, where it's sort of like
Bloomberg, the other billionaire, is liberal. Come on, that guy was just center right, barely.
Why it serves people right for riding the subway? Why do these people need to ride the subway? And maybe they should be. And then this is what happens to people.
Why do people have to ride the subway? Why is public transport an issue? Public transport in New York is the best thing about New York. First of all, let me make it clear, as someone who lived in New York, who rode the subway every day, not a single fuck is given by New Yorkers about the crazy shit happening on the subway. Also, there's a lot of nice, wonderful, wholesome shit that also happens on the subway. Whether it's buskers playing music, whether it's people dancing, doing flips and shit on the subway trains. There is a lot, but there is occasionally crazy people. There's occasionally a homeless guy sleeping in the train car in one corner. It kind of smells like pee. There's sometimes someone's smoking pot on the subway. These are for the rest of America, bigger issues than anybody in New York gives two fucks about. Can you say, oh my God, it's coffee. It's coffee, all right?
And so there's
There
always
you
something
go.
about liberalism that I think, in both its environmental forms and in its anti-crime forms, that's extraordinarily elitist. Because the elite liberal answer is it doesn't affect
do
you
you
if you're
think
not on the
Bernie
subway
is
or if
crazy?
you're in a nice, secure building in Manhattan. And so it's a way to increase class differences. And then this is the way. This would be like, I don't know, a conservative or even a Marxist critique of AOC is that she's it's sort of like an extreme upper class elitist thing in a way.
It's a Marxist critique of AOC that she is upper class. She was a fucking waitress that became a government official. Like, are you fucking kidding? And he doesn't cuck himself to Dems, hateful sadist. Bernie Sanders is always willing to accept what he knows is a disingenuous person and try and manipulate them. Like him saying, let me work with Elon to cut military spending. He knows full well that Elon Musk has zero desire to do this. He just wants to manipulate him. Unlike Cenk believes this and is cucked. By the way, New York City subway, I can't play this because copyrighted music, but this guy's just standing with his little speaker. They have a disco ball. He's singing. People clap. Like this kind of shit happens on the subway too. There's I'm sorry, I didn't have it, but there. Like coffee. Fuck off. I'm walking here. All right? Did you get the fun like New Yorker clips out of me? He kisses the boot after it stomped him. Well, he's trying to maintain power. That's the thing that a lot of Democrats and a lot of leftists don't understand is you have to have power. And sometimes that's letting the other side win on a bullshit issue so that you don't die on that hill. Like it makes a difference. There's a reason Bernie Sanders is effective, and that's because he'll pretend to at least give a shit what the other side says. It's also the same reason people are mad at AOC, is she hasn't gone left enough, not because she doesn't want to, not because Bernie doesn't want to, but because they have to work within the system of people constantly trying to handicap them. Somebody only wearing top half of a SpongeBob costume while wrestling a stranger who's yelling, "Sponge Bill, no!" Nobody else in the subway intervenes to help. You a New Yorker, Oxpecker? Because that does sound correct. Not gonna lie, I'm a busker, and I think it's kind of fucked to busk somewhere people can't ignore you. Yeah, but the thing is, people like it on the New York subway. If you're riding the subway in New York, you either have headphones on, you don't give a shit about what's going on around you, or you are listening to the buskers sing, dance, do breakdancing, shit like that. You don't have to pay them. Like, I rode this subway for years. Nobody is feeling uncomfortable by the busker playing music or singing. I don't even want to get into AOC and the Justice Dems. They all gave up on the obstructionist plan. They didn't give up. They were unable to do it. And they didn't want to get, like, they wanted to remain in power, which, by the way, most of them didn't. This is an issue with Dems that we can get into another time. You're right. It's not, it's a side quest right now.
For her to say.
We just need to
Completely agree.
finish this bit so that we can get on with...
The other big story, of course, has been the murder of the
Here we go.
healthcare CEO,
This is what I
Brian
wanted to
Thompson.
hear.
And you were dragged into this, like I said, through no fault of your own, but the alleged killer shared a video which featured you. Let's take a look at this.
I think there's this very strange phenomenon in Silicon Valley where a lot of the most talented startups, a lot of the great startups, seem to be run by people who are suffering from a mild form of Asperger's. And I think we need to always turn this fact around and view this as an indictment of our whole society. Because what does it say about our society when anyone who does not suffer from Asperger's, who is socially well adapted?
Okay, look, this is a theory that I have no evidence for. So take that however you will. I think maybe neurodivergent people might have a slight degree of like a +1 resistance bonus to online social media indoctrinating like material, like QAnon brainwashing material. Not to say it doesn't work, but I think that like neurodivergents do tend to have like a +1 resistance bonus just because of how our brains think, and most of these are created for the general population, so they might not work as well on us, which is why I think a lot of the people that actually engage, oftentimes even a lot of you in chat, are either ADHD or autistic or something, because the neurodivergents all became MAGA. Sorry, the neurotypicals all became MAGA. No, sadly, I'm a Texan, but this stand-up comedian, Shane Smith, describes the place hilariously. Never heard it, but it's probably true. They started voting with the party. What's good is staying in power if they wield it. Well, again, you can't make any change if you don't have any power. And Democrats are allergic to power. I said most of you. I'm autistic. I don't know whether you are.
Will be talked out of all of their original creative ideas before they're even fully formed, who will sense this is a little bit too weird, that's a little bit strange, that sounds a little bit crazy, people are looking at me in a weird way. And I think this is something that we must all realize is sort of a deeply endemic problem.
When you heard that he'd done this shooter, alleged shooter, Luigi...
I've not heard. This is the first time I'm hearing... Piers, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So can you explain to me what the link was?
Yeah, so the person who is alleged to have shot
Specker
and killed the healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, Luigi Mangione, on his social media feed, amongst many things, he'd retweeted stuff by Elon and others, but also by you, including that video clip of you. He just happened to post it and urge his followers to listen to it. So your name just got pulled into it purely by that reason. What's your reaction to that?
He speaks pretty poorly in this. And God, I hope he doesn't become a
it's,
politician.
I don't know.
He should be in prison, and so should Elon Musk. They should get thrown in the forever hole.
There's always a part of me that thinks articulating certain views is always very dangerous, and it can, obviously there are all these anti-free speech arguments that we should restrict speech because it's going to trigger people in all kinds of crazy ways. But I would have never thought that saying something like that
I want to throw them into this hole.
Would be that triggering. And,
all of them.
It was not, by the way, a pro-Asperger's comment. It was more a commentary on how there's something that's gone very haywire in a lot of the socialization processes that we have, where if people pick up on social cues, they somehow end up going down these very conventional career tracks, becoming MBAs, going down these very, very track jobs. But man, I do not straightforwardly understand how that's connected to what he did.
Well, I don't think it is, actually,
it's
to be
so
fair.
Fucking stupid. Conservative propaganda directs particular messaging at people who are neurodivergent. What else do you think that this... Well, I mean, yeah, they're working on us too, but I think there's a reason why we weren't first.
I think it's one of the things that he posted. So, in fact, thanks to Elon, initially his X feed was deleted by someone at X, but Elon made them put it back. So you can see all the stuff he'd been posting. And this happened to be one of the things that he had posted. And so it pulled you in purely in that regard. But there is a big debate raging about this incident, which is that a lot of people on the left have been expressing... I had one on, Taylor Lorenz, who was a former Washington Post journalist, came on my show on Monday and said she felt joy when she heard that this healthcare executive had been gunned down.
I felt joy too. It's called Schadenfreude.
Murdered. That she was pleased that it happened because she held him accountable for denying cover for, I think it's 30% of all claims.
Okay. We need to talk about this, and I wrote a piece on it. Let's listen to them finish, but I want to talk real quickly before we move on about how we discuss violence, how we define violence, because I personally think that Brian Thompson is a murderer, is a mass murderer, actually. I think that if you are the head of a health insurance company and you knowingly and willingly make a decision that leads to somebody not being able to access healthcare and dying, as a result, you killed them. So.
And separately, you've seen a very weird, quite twisted thing developing on social media where he's been described as a hot assassin because he's a good-looking guy, as if somehow that's an appropriate way to respond. What do you make of this?
I don't think that I don't think one should ever glamorize murder, and man, it probably just tells us more about how crazy some of these people are who are saying these things. That's I don't think it tells us that much about this case, but it tells us...
Esotericism leads into fascism, not into communism and anarchy. Most esoterics, most spiritual people, all the crystal mommies, they're all fucking right-wingers. That's the thing. The people who believe in like the woo-woo magic shit, the people we used to call hippies, are more often right-wingers than left. Some of them have gone full fucking Nazi. The thing they say is the moon landing never happened. Yeah, I've had a 5-hour debate with somebody who thought not only did the moon landing never happen, but that we never went to space. That we can't.
We're in a really crazy society where people, and it's all sort of fake, right? It's like, I don't think Taylor Lorenz is willing to do this herself or whatever, right? And so it's just this weird fake left-wing aesthetic of violence, and so it's just there's probably some very strange things you can say about this, but it's, I don't know, in some ways isn't this what
Wait, hold on 1 second. You think the Greens in America are communists? The Greens in America are nothing. Jill Stein is like a Russian agent, like photos of her sitting right next to Putin and shit. Are you like, Fox, you have no idea what you're talking about.
What the left was on some level doing with Trump for 8 years, where it was, this is the second coming of Adolf Hitler, and anything is justified to stop him. And then again, I think people are free to say these things. I believe we should have maximal freedom of speech. And then at the same time, there's a level
he's not
on it the thing that I find amazing.
Oh no, sorry, he's not on speed. I have it on 1.5 speed because he talks really slow and stutters a lot, and this was a long interview.
Is that it took them 8 years to get one person in a country of 330 million people to try to assassinate Trump. It was,
shut the fuck up. It was a right-winger that did. Okay, look, all I really wanted to end that with was his views on Brian Thompson and Luigi. And before we move on to the next bit, I want to talk about this. So I wrote this on my Patreon today. By the way, my Patreon's free. I don't ever post anything behind a paywall there. So if you want to join it, you can join it. I kind of use it like a Substack, but I don't really use it very often. But I think we need to have a discussion on how we define certain words, certain phrases, ideas, really, like violence, for example. So I'm not going to read you this whole thing. You can read it yourself. I'll link it in the chat. But essentially, whoopsie, I put a period at the end so the link didn't sit right. In my belief, you're still a murderer indirectly. Libs of TikTok is a stochastic terrorist. In my view, anyone who gets hurt based off a Libs of TikTok post, Libs of TikTok is directly culpable for. If someone gets killed in a bomb threat that happens because Libs of TikTok makes a post, then Libs of TikTok killed that person. If you are the CEO of a health insurance company and you're using an AI algorithm that is designed to deny 90% of elderly patients' claims, you are murdering elderly people on a mass scale. Brian Thompson was a mass murderer. Now, I'm not saying that you should be going out and doing vigilante justice. I'm not even allowed to say that if I wanted to. Not that I do. But what I am saying is we need socially, culturally, and internationally, really, develop a dialogue about specificity in definitions. One of the things that I agree with the right on, very few things that I agree with the right on, is our focus on inclusivity in language, or what they would call woke language, functions to make things less clear and less specific oftentimes. And I would like to clarify the meanings of words into a fashion in which we can all collectively agree that a word means the thing. Because a lot of the times we're arguing, whether we're arguing with each other on the left, whether we're arguing with a right-winger, whether we're just talking as regular people outside of politics, a lot of misunderstandings come from a lack of definitional understanding, a lack of literacy. I mean, again, most of America can't read above a sixth grade level. So we really do need to work on this. We need to talk more about this. And as we go on, I'm gonna try and incorporate some of that into what we do. A man like Putin may seem like he's strong, but if you think that, you're wrong. A man like Putin sure has sure has good luck because journalists die and he's rich as fuck. A man like Putin is really bad, and that you just need to explain is just so fucking sad. Well, it's true. Putin was made to look like this as a propaganda tool. He was literally KGB. Justice Dems were supposed to vote against anything until healthcare passed. They stopped being obstructionist to vote with the... Yeah, but if they hadn't stopped being obstructionist, then they all would have lost in 2022. They would have gotten voted out. All of them. The thing is, you can't make much change without the system allowing you to. Being obstructionist to an extreme degree is not useful. Because some of the things that they did pass, that they went, I did. They went back on their promises. You say it's to keep power, make change. I'd argue that they aren't making changes. They did, though. They did vote for good things. They made changes. They were just minor changes. Like, I understand where you're coming from. And your point into them keeping power alone is true. Like, I was kind of being short there. That's not all there is to it. But they did have to vote on issues that would be helpful to people. They could be obstructionist to the extreme level, but then they would be going against votes that they support. And again, I mean, we looked at this before, but throughout, first off, they would have lost in 2022 if they had done entirely oppositionally, blocking every possible vote. But also, the ones that were left after 2022, hold on, I'm trying to pull this up. The ones that were left and were sitting in the Biden administration, I mean, they were pretty successful in certain instances. I mean, some of these votes mattered. And of course, not all of them were still present, but during the last 4 years, we got 12% GDP growth, 60 million jobs. Unemployment was the lowest in 50 years. Is this anywhere near enough? No. But I think an issue that a lot of the left has is a lack of understanding that politics is slow, bureaucracy is slow, and change is grindingly slow. And a few people that we put in can't change this. We need mass young people from the bottom up infiltrating not only the Democrat Party, but I would argue even on the state level, the Democratic Socialists of America, who's the only third party that holds seats in congressional, in like state legislatures. They hold 50 seats. We need young people to get involved. We need to fix the party from the bottom up. Positive change never, ever will come from the top down. It's like economics. It doesn't trickle from the top down. It has to come from the bottom up. Change is the same thing. How do you think the Republicans got so much power? They got young people interested, they joined the party, and they changed it from the bottom up. Gotta jump by wanting to say that I love the way that you synthesized the CEO gate situation. Thank you, Critical Rad Theory. I'm glad you liked it. Again, like, I don't think they failed all that hard in some of the things that they did. And could they have done more? Yes. Should they have done more? Yes, but was it possible? Not really. Okay, Art, are you ready? I'm gonna run to the toilet really quickly, but then you can jump on. Also, Lennon, are you around? Because I'm gonna need a mod around. Those weren't the issues to fight, it was healthcare. Well, I know those weren't the issues to fight, it was healthcare. Either way you slice it, they failed their goal and didn't stick. Yes, but what they did was still worth doing. I disagree that, like obviously healthcare is a huge issue and it was important, but I disagree that not doing anything would have been a better solution. No worries, Art, you don't have to put your camera on. I'm gonna go run to the toilet really quickly and then I'll jump in and we can have the call. I don't agree with Kyle or Jenk on everything, but even if the founders are denouncing them, it's kind of bad. You shouldn't think about, like, you shouldn't believe anything Cenk Uygur says. While I go to the toilet, you can watch this one. Cenk. Which is the longer one, 30 seconds. Here we go.
Look, I didn't want the absolutely right. And that's another thing that triggered some folks on the left when I said, look, I didn't want Donald Trump to win. I fought super hard against it because he's that bull in a china shop, and I'm worried about some parts of that china shop, like our Constitution, our democracy, etc. But I am weirdly optimistic and hopeful now after the election, not because I'm happy that Trump won, but because the establishment is defeated. And the establishment is immovable. And they never would free Edward Snowden. They would never cut the Pentagon. They never do. They would never have conflict of interest rules because they think, oh my God, if we do it for the generals, maybe they're gonna think about doing it for the politicians. And the politician, oh my God, how would I feed my family if I can't make millions of dollars after I retired being a lobbyist and a consultant and all these things? So, look, here they are. Now, this is the second time Donald Trump Jr. has responded and said yes. And when I go on the shows, guys, it's not like I'm making them agree or this.
Libertarian Socialism, Kennedy Ivy, is the origin of the word libertarian. That's the original type of socialism. More Theil, please. Maybe he did a TED Talk recently. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait for that one because we have something planned. Now, I need a mod around, or any of my mods present. Just give me a second. So, Lord Fluffy Art is going to hop on voice call, and we're going to chat about libertarian socialism and their view on their disagreements with how I've laid out my ideology. And I'm going to get into a bit more specifics than I had prior to this. I guess I don't have any mods around. That's okay. We can make this work without the mods. The issue is, you guys might get bored if I don't have anything on screen for all of us. Libertarian socialism is not an oxymoron. You are just a moron. Libertarian socialism is the definitional, oh, thanks, Oxpecker. Thank you. Is the definitional source of what socialism is, of libertarianism is. Here, all right. Cool. By the way, can everyone hear Art? Just make sure, real quick. Hello? Okay. You talk, and if they can't hear you, we'll sort that out in a second. This is true. In fact, I agree. They are complementary. Hey, Ethoslab. Welcome as well. So, libertarian socialism, just as a quick outline for everyone before you and me get into it, Art, I just want to cover it for the people that are new and don't really know, just basic definitionally. Anti-authoritarian, anti-capitalist political current that emphasizes self-governance and worker self-management, contrasted from other forms of socialism by its rejection of state ownership, from other forms of libertarianism by its rejection of private property. Broadly defined, it includes schools of thought of both anarchism and Marxism, as well as tendencies that oppose the state and capitalism. I am all of those things. The only thing that I really disagree with is that, where is it? Where's the bit about education? I disagree with the general view on education. But here, read this. Okay, so do you want to start, Art, by talking about, talk about what you had issue with, what you didn't like about my ideology? Wait, they can't hear you. Hold on, they can't hear you. Now then. Oh, maybe it's because I have streamer mode enabled on Discord. Keep talking, and I'm gonna try and sort this out. Just keep saying shit. Oh my god. Discord input. I'm literally creating a source. This is brain rot. Output source, there we go.
Fictional character is kind of brain rot, so I don't know.
Okay.
Let me be brain rot about this at least.
They should be able to hear you now, I think. I think.
Hello?
You can hear him now.
Hi.
Yes, thank you, Ethoslav. I very much appreciate the help there. All right. Now, please, you can start with your points.
Okay. So I mostly agree with everything. I mostly agree with everything that you were saying about how we should provide for the poor and the needy, and we should have universal basic income, and people should be allowed to work wherever they want. My biggest thing that I disagree with is just the idea that there shouldn't be a national government.
So the stateless part of it, right?
Yeah, basically. I think that I don't think that a state necessitates that things come from the top down. Personally, the way that I would view that a state would happen in socialism is that there would be generalized policy across the nation, like standards for health. There'd be redistribution of wealth from various regions of the country.
I think you
so
can do
places
this
like
with bureaucracy without a state, though.
Here's the thing. I think the only way to really uphold standards is with a state.
Why do you think that?
I just don't like. What's to stop a small city state from? What's to stop a small city state from, say, making abortion illegal and all those other things? If there's nobody that's gonna overrule them, if there's nobody that's gonna stop them.
Well, for one, let's say in this hypothetical scenario, if you're against this in a stateless, classless, moneyless society, then get that person out of power. You can work with the rest of your community. It's supposed to be community cooperation. But also, let's say this is one state in a sea of 5, 6 other states around them, small little mini city states that are decentralized with a larger overreaching like bureaucracy. That's not a state that just kind of functions to keep each other connected, keep communication lines open, keep trade flowing. As you know, trade would still exist. It just wouldn't be commodity trade. And so inside this superstructure of bureaucracy above a state, elected officials that are not officials, they have really no power over anybody. It's just they've been chosen by their community to represent them to the other communities and to voice like the community as a whole. And through this, if one community is doing something that is harmful to not only the people in their community, but to others around them, then that would be dismantled. Again, as we listened to Chomsky say the other day, any form of authority or oppression should have to display why it's legitimate, explain why it's legitimate, and if it fails to do so, it should be dismantled. They're also the ones that are responsible for defining what is legitimate. Oh, by the way, if you're in chat, I'm not looking at chat right now, so like don't be adding me directly because chat would be distracting if I was. But do you know what I mean? In that these systems can exist without a top-down structure.
I mean, I think I understand, but I also think that maybe our definitions of a state and bureaucracy aren't lining up.
Well, a state for me is a government. It's basically a... Well, you know what? Let me take a step back. How about you define your definition of a state and a bureaucracy, and then we can go from there, because I'd rather not start off on just my ideology. I want you to put in your input as well, and we can work off that. Okay.
Basically, what I think is that a state really... A state is just a government that rules over a certain amount of territory, right? And a state can be anything, whether it be is a dictatorship or a democracy or even a direct democracy or like hell, I personally think that as long as there's a set as long as there's a set of rules being enforced over a certain area, like for example, like I think that I think that an anarchist like commune that rules over a certain area would be a form of a state, because they're enforcing the idea that there is no restrictions on your freedom or whatever, that they're enforcing that idea. I personally think that the best way to enforce standards across a nation and prevent it from devolving is with a national state and with regional state governments.
Okay. I understand what you mean here, but I just want to I want to cut in really quickly to describe something that is necessary prior to this point that kind of negates the need for this as much. So when we talk about a revolution, we talk about it in the sense of whether it's violent or not. We talk about a economic and a social revolution. I believe that we also need a full cultural revolution. We need a revolution.
That's not Maoist for everyone in chat.
Yeah, not Maoist type. It needs to include the liberation of all marginalized groups, women, children, races, religions. We need a collective liberation, everybody from the bottom up liberating ourselves. It needs to be emancipation of the working class by the working class. And to have that occur, there are changes that need to be made on minor levels in both how we engage with each other, in how we see cooperation rather than like competition. We need to incentivize these behaviors well before, like as we've talked about, the system that I'm describing cannot exist in our current world. We just don't have the prerequisites required yet. But I think socialism isn't about state control. I think like nationalization of industry and collective ownership of the means of production are like essential parts of socialism, but I think the key at the end is collective liberation. And I think that as the people trying to do this, right, as the revolutionaries, our goal should be to no longer exist. The goal of the revolutionary, the leftist, should be that there is no left or right in the end, to create a system in which we have cooperation and that the power structures could dissolve rather than perpetuating our own power.
I do agree with the idea that there shouldn't be, like, we should have the goal to just get rid of ourselves, and we should have the goal of dissuading political power. Personally, I think that if socialism is going to last, I think that it's going to need cooperation and national direction. Like, because I honestly, I think after socialism has been properly achieved, like we're talking about, I think that the job of the state is going to to hold up values. Like, it's going to be to hold up the rights and values of the people across the nation.
And see, I think that should be the community. I think that should be the community, not the state. On a smaller scale, because especially think about it this way, right? If you as the state are trying to prevent oppression, you're trying to prevent oppression on a much larger scale, in a large percentage of even in a centralized government. You don't have access, but if it's like you can't fix everything everywhere. America is huge. But if we put this onus on protection of rights and liberties on both individuals and the collective communities, then not only is the job to do this on a smaller scale, but it involves everyone. I don't think that it's like, I think that it would function better if everyone's job was to do this, as in personal freedoms and community are interlinked. Personal rights and community are interlinked. Bettering one, if you increase someone's personal freedoms in this system, then you also benefit the community. And if you benefit the community, then in turn you are also benefiting the individual freedoms of those that are in the He's a lot quieter when you switch to Discord. Oopsie. Let's try it this way. Is that better? But you get what I mean? I got through my point, I think.
Yeah, I get what your point is, but I also had something else to add on. Like, I don't think that the job of the state is just to do that, right?
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to continue to progress, right, as a nation,
progress in what way? Just out of
as in terms of technology and in terms of increasing the quality of life, because that's always going to be the goal of any group of people, to increase their own quality of life, right? I think that one of the best ways to facilitate that nationwide would be through a state, but I want to explain the exact way that I think that this would work, because it's going to get complicated.
Go for it.
So I think that the state would have a job economically to promote certain goals, like, there is a food shortage in this area of the nation, so we're going to promote that the nation produces more food, or that we are able to produce more goods so we can import more food from other countries that have the food that we need to give to these people, right?
Yeah.
And then that would go down to the state and regional governments, the state and local governments, to implement however they choose to, right? And then we look at areas that did particularly well, that had that fixed the issue efficiently and quickly and without human suffering, right? And we look at those regions and we look at the reasons why it was so successful. Was it because of geography? Like, perhaps they were on the coast and they were just were able to import food, or was it circumstance, like they just had a really good harvest that year that was out of place? Or was it because of specific policies that they took, and that they took to reduce the or to increase the amount of food that the country has, right? I think that if it's the third one, that idea, that that standard that they set in that regional area should become the standard nationwide. And I don't think you need to necessarily enforce that on them, right? I think you can just gently encourage them with increases to funding, or I think that's how you could really do it. Just increasing their funding or subsidizing it. And I also think I think that that's a good way that you could promote economic growth nationwide, and it would promote a more unified.
I'm sorry, I had to put it on because I was like, these people need some brain rot to keep them paying attention. Okay, look, I agree with you on everything that you said. However, I also think that all of that could happen instead of from top down, from a bottom-up standpoint. I think instead of, as I described, the bureaucracy of the interconnected but decentralized city-states that have those bureaucrats that they put forward, they would be the ones that are saying, hey, look, we need more food. We have these issues. And then you go to the bureaucracy. And by the way, like, wealth in this case would be equally distributed amongst, like, everybody. This would not be a society that functions around wealth, but we can still function around other capitalist or even anarchist, non-libertarian socialist countries that still have money. We can still trade internationally and work with systems that work for profit, just not use those systems unless we need to, as it would cost the communities more money, and be like, if you have the decentralized structure, if you have the decentralized structure, there's a lot less back and forth and like behind the scenes arguing over policy. Everything's done much more out in the open, and I think would be much more likely to result in fixing issues more efficiently.
So, like, let me get. I want to ask because I want to get a better idea of what you're proposing. So what you're saying is that there'd be a nationwide bureaucracy, right? And they would be the one, like, you would have an area that requests, oh, we need more food. Like let's say that a few city states in like Arizona, because they don't have very good agriculture there, right? They say that they need more food, and they would like ask for help from the rest of the nation, right?
I can describe how that would work, like, really quickly if you want. Okay, so let's say Arizona needs food. They talk to whoever, like this, let's not even say Arizona, let's say Phoenix, because like Arizona's too big for it to be one community. Let's just say Phoenix, just off the bat, for no reason. It doesn't matter whether it's like likely or not. Phoenix needs more food. So it reaches out to its official, like the person that people in Phoenix have put in charge of bureaucracy. And that person's job is to reach out to other neighboring communities around them. And then if they can't help, reach out to larger, like the communities in the rest of the country. And let's say it's been a particularly shit year. You know, climate change is happened at this point. Everything's fucked. Access to food this year has been pretty rough for us. But Mexico had a surplus, so we need to import from Mexico. So we would still have structures of being able to engage with capitalist countries with their money. We wouldn't have any money of our own, but that doesn't mean we don't have resources and wealth. And if we need to trade with a foreign country, we can still trade in that manner. We just don't use commodities in our own system, and we try and incentivize everyone else to join, like, the system that we're in. And by the way, like, I still do fully believe that if America adopted any form of socialism, a whole lot of countries would start flipping real quick.
I do want to say, because you were talking about how, like, we could encourage them. I honestly don't think we would really need to even encourage them.
No, yeah, I think they would just do it. A lot of them.
I think that, I mean, I don't think that it would happen like overnight or that it would happen in a few years. I think it would still take decades. But I think that as they see our prosperity and our equality and the standards of living in the U.S. go up, in spite of the fact that we did socialism and none of the, you know, and like none of the crap that all the right-wing propagandists say is going to happen, none of that happens, right? I think that as that happens, people in other nations are going to be like, well, why don't we do that? Like, in the same way that Americans look at Scandinavia and we say, well, why don't we do that?
Well, I agree. And in fact, like, there are some countries that I think would much quicker than a few years switch to like Brazil, for example, would be one that I would think would be much more likely to do more socialist policies, even switch their economic system entirely. Maybe like South America would be a lot of the countries that I would imagine flipping first. And for those in chat, I just happened to glance over. Human nature does not exist when it comes to things like greed. Greed is not nature, it's nurture. Nobody is innately capitalist. Nobody's innately any of that. You are just innately an idiot.
Yeah.
But yeah, continue. Like, I agree with you. I think that people would see the prosperity and how much better things are under the circumstances. And also, a lot of countries already want to be socialist, or at least did until they got the right-wing economic populism, because the liberals in their country ignored the desire for left-wing economic populism. I still think that a Bernie Sanders style campaign, I think even Bernie Sanders, although this would have been his toughest year, could have won against Trump this year. He would have annihilated Trump in 2020 and in 2016. People want economic populism because that's the extent to which they understand. But in the system of like libertarian socialism, as I described, you get all of that, and it's not about economic populism. It's about liberation. It's the original meaning of libertarian, is to have liberty. The state has no control over what you can do with your life as long as you are not impeding another person's ability to do what they want with their life, and you can't own any private property. Like those are like really the two key things there. I'm still movable on whether or not like it needs to be entirely stateless. I do think that a superstructure of a broad, decentralized, and not really like no power given bureaucracy would function better. Like they don't get to make decisions. They just relay the messages of the community, and all of this bureaucracy as a whole would make decisions based off of their communities. Like, you know, they go talk to all of the other bureaucrats, and then they go home, and then everyone else talks, and then we have like a referendum, direct democracy. I don't want the bureaucrats voting on it. I just want them relaying the information. If we're going to make like a change, it would be direct democracy with like,
I definitely agree with that. I also, cause I said this in the debate channel, or whatever channel it was. I can't remember the exact channel it was, but I really like how California has elections where you can just recall shit, and how we can just vote on specific policies. I think that's great. But I also think that there is some value to having representatives vote on things. That being, if it's something that's urgent and we need an urgent response before we can get the nation together to actually vote on it, right? Because organizing an election to vote on a specific policy nationwide is that's going to be time consuming. I mean, hell, especially if we're going into the future and we're talking about like potentially 200, 300 years down the line, when America's going to have a population of like 400, 500 million. Mind you, India is a country that has elections that take a month to finish.
This is true, because they have a lot of people.
They are such a large country.
It's not even just that they're a large country, it's that there's large parts of India's population that live in remote areas that are difficult to reach.
The same thing is true in America too.
Well, yeah, exactly. Oh, so someone else is here. Holy shit! Hello.
Yeah,
Can I say something about the state?
Sure, but then you gotta go because this is supposed to be just me and Art.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to go?
No, just say your thing.
My thing is with the state, you're going to have to, because eventually it will fail, and the thing is, I'm not sure the people in power of said state would ever let the power go.
You missed like too much of what I had already said. I mean, you got to go back and watch it from the beginning. But yeah, leave it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah, I noticed him joining, and I was like, do I say something or do I not? Anyways,
can I just make explain something to chat, and then I'm gonna turn off chat so I don't see it again. Pushiga, there has never been an existing socialist nor communist country in the world. Communism and socialism are directly opposites of dictatorships. They can't exist together in the same way. Read the link that I sent you. That is my view. But also, the Chinese Communist Party have state they have a state economy. They have state capitalism. Thank you. State capitalism. They are not socialist, nor are they communist. The USSR also had state capitalism, was never socialist nor communist, and America is closer to a one-party state. Yeah, but also North Korea is not democratic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, there you go.
I also just want to say, communist country is an oxymoron.
Yeah, again, exactly. There is no, like, communism by definition is a stateless society.
Yeah. So any country being quote unquote communist would be an oxymoron.
Yes.
Because if you have a country,
then you're not communist.
You can't have communism. Yeah, exactly.
By definition, communism is a socio-political, philosophical, economic ideology within a social movement whose goal is to create a communist society, a socio-economic order centered around common ownership of the means of production, distribution, and change that allocates products to everyone, a society based on need. Communist society would entail the absence of private property and social classes, ultimately money and the state. By the way, I'm not a communist. I just, I agree with some of that, though.
Yeah, I'm not a communist either, but I do agree with some of that.
Cuba's the closest thing we've ever got to real socialism, and even they're not real socialism.
Yeah, no, I mean, they also didn't have any real chance of actually succeeding as a socialist country, just because the second they would actually come out as actual socialists.
I mean, they did though.
The US...
They did succeed as a social. They helped out a lot of people during COVID. Like they're successful enough that they managed to send doctors out into the rest of the world.
But I just mean that they don't reach the heights that the U.S. or Europe.
Oh yes,
or
absolutely.
Even some countries in their area.
And they could have gotten better if we didn't fuck with them too. Like we embargoed the shit out of them.
100%. The reason why I said that they wouldn't be successful is just because they're not powerful enough to enforce it. They're not powerful enough to assert themselves and not be beholden to the United States. Like it's just one of the downsides of living next to a superpower. You're gonna get fucked with by them no matter what. It's unfortunate, but it's how geopolitics work.
I think that I think we can ignore all of that, because the point here is what's needed to create these good outcomes is the cultural revolution. Of what I mean by this is we need to create a more both globalist and individualist culture in which we can do both. We need to, first of all, get back to a state in which we can do nuance, because most people just can't do that anymore. But
What do you mean anymore? We've never been able to do nuance.
Well, I mean, okay, that's a good point. It's just that, like, we've focused so much on individualism lately, and it's not a bad thing, by the way, individualism on its own, but we've gone too far to the extreme that we've lost all semblance of community, and we need to start by getting back into building community while still keeping the benefits that we've gained from our increase in individualism, to be able to at least start the process of producing the cultural revolution that would be required to have these outcomes. It's not like, this is not a my lifetime thing. Hence, usually what I'm working towards is just socialism. Like this is not the goal that I tend to openly and outwardly, like, first and foremost, this is my goal, because this is a long-term goal. It's the same way in that, like, if there's a communist around, I'll tell them, like, you're just work for socialism first. That's much more doable, instead of going for, like, an idea that's so vast and huge that it seems and feels impossible to people, and then they don't care. So if you start small and just build community, I mean, that alone makes a big difference.
I also think that the idea that human, like, because I saw someone comment about this human nature and whatnot, and I have a piece of evidence to go against that. The fact that small business owners come together every time that there's a natural disaster to help the weak, the needy, and the poor, like, every time that happens is just proof to me that it is possible for people to be not selfish. And from what I saw, they were all talking about how if one area of the community gets hurt, all areas of the community gets hurt, which is exactly the kind of thing that we need to happen, and it's already happening in the U.S. We just need to push it further. And encourage it more, and get people to think that, I mean, honestly, I don't want to say this because it's just awful, but also I think it's necessary. We need to make it sigma and based to be selfless.
Yeah, no, genuinely, I agree. And also, don't cringe. Using their terminology is not a bad thing. The reason that, like, a lot of our messaging gets lost is, I've talked about this before, is there's filter built into the mind of the right winger, in that like anything that sounds woke, anything that sounds just like it's coming from the left, they instinctually ignore. And by saying we need to make being selfless Sigma again, is something that it'll actually pass through that barrier and they'll hear it. Whether or not they do it, that's a whole different story, but like goal first is to actually get them to hear it, you know?
Yeah.
But this is actually, this is not a difficult thing to achieve. Historically, that was how it was viewed. Like, it was mostly a male-centric thing, but, you know, a man that sacrifices his life for his family or his country is viewed honorably.
I mean, I think that and I know that I'm biased because I like all this stupid shit and it's my cup of tea.
What stupid
honestly,
shit?
Like Optimus Prime and Captain America, like.
Oh no, but like using cultural like icons that are in media to do political messaging is not stupid at all. That's what they do.
Well, I'm just saying that the idea. I'm saying that the idea of them is stupid. Like a giant robot that has a heart of gold.
Nah.
Who, believes in the ideology that but I think his ideology is great.
That actually sounds more American than anything else. That's not stupid. That just, first of all, like, you can't say stupid about art because it's objective, but that's like Optimus Prime's description that you just gave to me is the most American description that I've ever heard of a thing. Like old school ideology.
Yeah, like his Peter Cullen, the guy who voices him, has this thing that his older brother taught him, which I think is great, and I think we should adopt it as a nation. The idea that you have to be strong enough to be gentle, not to be like some Hollywood hero who just kicks ass and is awesome all the time. Be strong enough to use that strength to be gentle to other people.
Well, I mean, we have historical examples of this too, of the quiet strongman. I mean, again, it's a matter of messaging in a way that is propagandistic, but for the right reasons.
I mean, honestly,
or rather, for the left reasons.
Yeah, I think that the way that we would go about doing that, like, if Tim Walz was even just slightly more left and he had actually been the candidate instead of Harris.
Oh yeah,
He could have promoted the idea of strong enough to be gentle because he embodies that.
I agree. So Tim Walz got cucked by the DNC, and I still think that he still would have lost because the DNC would have cucked whoever ended up being the nominee because Democrats are just allergic to power. But
I mean, they're allergic to people who don't automatically conform with their liberal
civility politics.
Gavin Newsom. Yeah, their liberal Gavin Newsom idea of, we need to be pro-business, but we need to have regulations.
Well, that's because they don't work for you. They work for the capital class. They're what I would call controlled opposition. They're like
they are.
They're like Destiny.
They're the Communist Party. They're the Communist Party in the Russian Federation.
Right. Okay. I was gonna say they're more like Destiny in that they appear to be on the side of the left, but more often than not serve to protect the interests of the capital class.
That's literally the Communist Party of the Russian Federation.
Oh, well, fair enough. The issue again is just we need to communicate more. But I agree with you that, like, let's say we take out the cucking of the Democrat Party, even, you know, keep that in even. Let's say Tim Walz still loses, but that idea would have grown much more as a sentiment if he had been the candidate instead of Kamala Harris as well. I don't know. He can never run again, but.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. I mean,
we might not ever get an actual election again.
Yeah, no, I keep telling my parents that, and they're like,
well, we'll get an election. We'll get an election.
Oh yeah, we'll get an election.
Whether it's free
and
and fair.
A Putin election.
Yeah.
It'll be a fucking Putin rigged election where great President Donald Trump gets 74% of the vote and is re-elected successfully for third time in American history.
I was imagining more of like an Erdogan type thing of every election he gets 51% of the vote exactly, and then every time he hits the term limit, changes the constitution to extend the term limits.
Yeah. I can't do a Turkish accent without being racist, so I'm not going to.
I can't do a Turkish accent, and I'm Turkish, so.
Well, but yeah, that's also a possibility because then.
And also, hold on.
Then
that's a thing I want to say. You can do a Turkish accent without being racist. We need to like make that okay again. I don't know. Doing voices is not like if you're doing it with racist intentions is bad. But if you're just like, I don't know, if I started to pretend to sound like an Indian person to make a point, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I like make comedy legal again. Yallah habibi.
Like, yeah, I mean, I think that there would be some value to him winning by 51% of the vote every time because it would make it so that the election industry doesn't die off and it would make it so a lot of people make money.
I mean, it would probably make us end up kind of like Syria in the end, in that like, you know, we would eventually revolt if they kept doing that. I imagine, I hope at least that we would. I hope that we wouldn't just like, I don't know, submit like sheep. But if that ever happened, a whole bunch of other foreign countries are going to start trying to carve out pieces of us. The only reason it's not a debate. This is a discussion. Looking at chat again. I was just reading. There's a lot to catch up on there and a lot of people in there. But in regards to the implementation of the...
I just got called a dumb fuck.
Yeah, again, don't look at chat. Ignore them. It doesn't matter right now. They'll just distract you. It'll make you feel self-conscious and distracted. But in regards to what I described in my idea of libertarian socialism, have I like properly described how a non-state would function?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that what you're describing is literally just what I'm describing, just that, well, I mean, I mean,
we agree on everything here. It's just the state.
Yeah, I think that our biggest difference is gonna come with the military, because I think as long as there are other nations that aren't socialist, we're gonna need a military to at least.
I think part of that bureaucracy could be in organization of the various militias that exist in every community. Because, like, again, first of all, we're talking about America, so everyone has guns. And if we're talking about decentralized little city-states, then everyone has little militias to protect their city-states. Well, if we have an overarching, like, superstructure of a bureaucracy that doesn't have any power, but exists to organize and to properly, like, get information across different like city lines, state lines, what have you, then we could organize that militia into a defense force. I don't think we need an offensive military. I also think that there's not a country on earth that could invade the United States by force and take it and hold it.
I call me imperialist and call me whatever you want for this opinion, but I don't think we could defend territories like Puerto Rico or Hawaii.
I don't think
like
we need
any
to.
Territory. I think that we do. Like especially
well,
like.
First of all, Hawaiians don't want us there.
Well, we're not sure about that.
No, we're like, sure about that. Like native Hawaiians fucking hate Americans. I promise you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're not the only Hawaiians who live there.
Yeah, the rest are the ones that like are destroying the island. Now, of course, their whole industry functions on tourism, and that's a whole other thing. But like the other thing is, what is the benefit of a country in like what are they gonna get out of invading Hawaii if we don't have a centralized U.S. government? Like what benefit does Hawaii have?
It's a location that they could use to further spread their influence into the Americas that has typically been the hegemony of the United States. It would be a point where they could it would be a point where China could more easily get access to.
I would think we should work. I would want to increase our like diplomacy and cooperation with China in this case. Look, in the case of libertarian socialism being the state, here's my little bit of a hot take, and I think you're going to disagree with me on this, is I'm okay with us stopping being the police of the world, even if that means a lot of bad things that we're preventing happen, as long as, A, we actually do this properly, and B, we attempt to incentivize other countries to change over to our system, that is the better way to spend the time than to fight wars to stop other countries from doing stuff. Engaging in good faith, even with an aggressive country, that's not like overtly aggressive towards you, but is aggressive, is not a bad thing. And China, by the way, is only really aggressive in its general region. And if we're talking about, like, I don't know, defense of like Puerto Rico, right? That's not something that can't be done. Now, could we defend Puerto Rico in like a military invasion situation? Probably not. No, we wouldn't be able to marshal the militias and send them over to protect them. I'm okay with that because I think it's more important to establish a working system of libertarian socialism, because that will spread and eventually lead to these issues stopping. And also, here's the issue that I have. Our military-industrial complex, while we can use it to protect people from bad things, we often also use it to do bad things. And to have them... Okay, well, this one's not copyright, Ethoslob, so find me a not copyrighted Subway Surfer. But, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's difficult to envision...
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I also think that I disagree with the idea that because the American military has in the past been used to oppress and put down others, right? That a military under a new system would be the same way. I personally think that it wouldn't be hard for us to push for, or to at least continue defending the areas that we don't have to invade anyone. We just have to continue.
Shit, sorry.
We just have to keep up our obligations where they presently stand, right? Because I also think that spreading socialism where we won't defend our allies anymore is going to be much harder, because that's going to hurt our international reputation, and it's going to make us seem less attractive and socialism seem less attractive.
So take this on for an example of your thought process here, right? So we've both established that this idea is not possible in the short term. This won't happen in our lifetimes. We can only work towards building the foundation and the systems needed for this, right? Well,
yes,
the political landscape will change entirely by this point in time. And if we are putting in place these systems, and we are America, still at this point a capitalist society, the most influential country in the world, then these ideas will also be spreading to the world. Just like how, like, every country that has a right wing has the same exact narrative because it's pushed by the same people. They all think about like a deep state that is controlled by the Jews, that's, I don't know, we're trying to replace the white race and all this bullshit. We need to get good at spreading our messaging so that our messaging spreads that way. And over time, it produces systems in other countries that make them less of an issue. And again, like a big thing here that prevents corruption of these systems is a lack of capital, a lack of a market, no commodities, no private property. That is what would lead to this. Now, of course, you can still have personal property, and of course, we still would be exchanging with other countries, but the lack of capital specifically and the ability to accumulate power is the safest outcome for long-term, like, good here. Like, again, this is where the USSR went wrong, in my opinion, in that they kept capital around, even as a transitionary step. Having state socialism to go from capitalism to socialism didn't work because the existence of capital begs the existence of a capital class.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I also think part of the reason why the Soviet Union failed was just because it was Russia. They didn't have industry. And one of the prerequisites for actual socialism is to have a large industrial base beforehand, in the bare minimum. You can't be at the bottom of the tech tree and have a proper working socialist economy.
They could have. Again, remember, the Russian Revolution, the people who won are the ones we remember, but the people who lost were the Libertarian Socialists, were the people...
I'm saying...
that could have worked.
I get what you're saying, but I also think that I think that rapid industrialization was needed if they were ever going to have
Chat says they already had a ton of industry. They're disagreeing with you that the Soviet Union didn't have.
They had. I'm not talking about the Soviet Union. I'm talking about the Russian Empire.
Oh,
in
sorry.
1917.
Okay. Yeah. To clarify, so pre-Soviet Russia didn't have enough industry.
I'm talking about 1917 when the Russian military could barely field like any kind of armored units, when most Western militaries like the United States, France, Germany, Great Britain were all fielding armored units and could actually supply.
Oh well,
their
yes,
troops with
but
food
here's the issue, right?
And weapons.
The way that the Soviets industrialized post-revolution was by destroying.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was by destroying the labor unions, by killing the anarchists, and by instituting fascism. Well, not fascism yet. It was fascism under Stalin, but authoritarianism under Lenin.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see
like
what
Lenin
you're saying,
had good
Lenin.
ideas. Yeah, well, those. Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, you were talking to Lenin in chat. I just saw that as well.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The first thing they did after the revolution was expand industry. Yes, but they need. I think that a country, if they really want to properly adopt socialism, they need to industrialize first. That's my opinion, anyways.
Well,
they need to
yeah.
industrialize at least to a certain degree before they can properly adopt socialism. Because without an industrial economy, you are going to have an economy that is based around subsistence agriculture, and you're not going to have universities. You're not going to have lots of education. You are going to have people who are going to be working in the agricultural sector who are going to have a lot of kids, and are going to lack the healthcare that they need just because the country doesn't produce enough scientists or overall wealth to support a social security net.
I think all of those systems could be implemented through like a on a smaller scale a libertarian socialist society.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking.
You need
about
the industrialization
an agrarian economy.
But how many? I mean, realistically, though, I do think that it could still work in an agrarian economy, just on a lesser scale. I think that they would have more difficulty trading with countries around them until they industrialized. But I also think you can still industrialize as a socialist nation. It would just be done differently. And can I play just like a 3-minute video on the difference between socialism and that of the Soviet Union, just for those, because there's a lot of people in chat that are having opinions on like Lenin and all of this. It's just 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Thanks for the sub, Ethoslav. I really, really appreciate it.
We should recognize what I think is true. I've written about it plenty myself, that the Bolshevik Revolution, so-called revolution, it was really a coup, was really a counter-revolution.
I do want to say while we wait for you to pull that video up.
It's already up, but
oh,
what did you want to say? What did you want to say? I paused it.
I just wanted to say how I don't think that's an issue for the United States because we're already an industrialized Western economy.
Yeah.
And I think that by the time that that we would achieve this kind of thing in the United States, basically every third world country would have advanced beyond the point where they would have industrialization and they'd have an economy that was capable of supporting this system. So I think it's a moot point, but I just don't think.
Yeah.
My point was just that I don't think it would be possible to properly implement it in the Russian Empire of 1917.
Oh yeah, but now we're getting on to like a sidetrack. And Pushiga, fuck no.
Yeah.
Do you believe that statement? Hybrid economies are the best. The biggest growth in human history was China and Russia. Yeah, but those are all not good countries because these hybrid economies are using state capitalism, which is just capitalism with extra steps. Look, hold on. I found a different video that I want to play that hopefully isn't very staticky all the way through.
I agree with everything except the bottom line.
Okay, there we go. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Well, I think that if you're pregnant with a kid that like is going to have a horrible life, then you should be able to abort the kid. I don't think that.
Sorry, can you send me that video? Because I have the stream muted, so I can.
Sure. So this is the video that I'm about to play. I'm just gonna put it in Twitch chat, real quick.
All right, thank you.
See, I don't agree. See, but
I'm gonna start at 25 seconds in, just so you know, just because it's static all the way up until there.
See, but there now we're getting to it. Yeah. No, they're not. Yeah. I agree with everything except the bottom line. I mean, let's take a really harsh institution that we don't argue about.
We took that quiz
slavery.
on stream,
Okay,
Kushiga.
nobody thinks slavery was good, I presume. Nevertheless, everything that you just said could be said about slavery. I mean, if you took a look at the plantation economy, there were masters who were very decent people. They treated the slaves very nicely. In fact, they were treated better than free workers, much better. They were allowed to live their family lives, I mean, they didn't beat them up or anything. But it didn't matter. It was slavery. And maybe some of them, gave money to the church and did all kind of decent things. Probably they did, nice people. But the trouble was the institution. The institution was wrong. It doesn't matter whether you do it nicely or not nicely. People, the idea that a person should be owned is just an intolerable infringement on human rights, whether the person who owns them is nice to them or not. And
this applies to the state as well, in my opinion. I think that's what he's about to get to.
In the 19th century, it was widely recognized that the same is true if people are rented. It's an intolerable infringement on people's rights.
I agree.
Even if
you working for a wage is you being rented. It's an intolerable infringement on your rights.
The guy who rents you is nice to you. The question is whether decisions over investment, production, distribution, what happens on the shop floor, conditions of work, all that kind of stuff, whether those decisions should be out of public control. You go back to the 19th century when there was a live, popular, libertarian working class movement, and you will read in the Knights of Labor statement publications that wage slavery is not all that different from slavery. In fact, if you bother to go back to the origins of democratic thought, you really read the classics of when people claim to be,
God, why is it
classical liberals
so
and so on.
fucking?
But you go back and read this stuff, like say Wilhelm von Humboldt.
How about that point?
God damn it! All right, hold on.
Under their
Fuck it. Let's just watch this one. It's just because I had already played this one. I wanted something fresh, but this actually is better.
We should recognize what I think is true. I've written about it plenty myself. That the Bolshevik Revolution, so-called revolution, it was really a coup, was really a counter-revolution, which placed state power in the hands of a highly authoritarian, anti-socialist group, which within a couple of months had destroyed the factory councils, had destroyed the Soviets.
This is under Lenin.
Dismissed the Constituent Assembly because they knew they were going to lose.
Now, of course, a lot of that influence came from Trotsky, but...
and had eliminated every popular movement and had done exactly what Trotsky said.
There we go.
Country into a labor army under the control
What'd you say, Art?
Oh, I was just saying I could just read the subtitles. I didn't even see that you put them on.
Yeah, I try to
Maximal
always.
Leader. That was mid-1918. I mean, since then, there hasn't been a shred of socialism in the Soviet Union. Now, of course, they called it socialism, but they also called it democracy. They were people's democracies, the purest form of democracy. They were socialism. The left, the West, the big propaganda system in the world, of course, just laughed at the democracy part, but it loved the socialism part, because that's a way to defame socialism. So if you think that the fall of the Soviet Union is a blow to socialism, you ought to also think on the same grounds that it's a blow to democracy. After all, they call themselves democracies too, so why isn't it a blow to democracy? It makes as much sense. It's only when it gets filtered through the Western propaganda system that it's not a blow to democracy, but it is a blow to socialism. But there's absolutely no reason to play that game, whether you play it in dissent or in the nation or on the right or anywhere else. Expose it for the fraud that it is.
I agree with every statement that's being
What
said
ideology?
here.
The ideology of totalitarianism? Yeah, it's deeply flawed. I mean, they were the initial modern totalitarians.
Which was
It's
then
not
taken up by
they destroyed
the
socialism
Chinese.
within weeks. They didn't wait. By 1918, it was finished. And they knew it, like it's not a secret. They knew it. I mean, in fact, Lenin, as soon as he sort of got grips of things, after he said, "Let's."
I definitely do agree that the Soviet Union, if the Soviet Union was supposedly an example of socialism, it should have been an example of democracy too, because they called themselves that.
Well, you need both. You need both. Yeah. And Comrade Lenin, I know you don't agree with this. Bring up some citations, and when you and I debate, we can talk about it there. Like, I'm fully happy to discuss this in more detail with you when we debate. This is my, me getting my ideology of how I view Leninism and the Soviet Union out here.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I know he's a terrible person. I'm glad he's dead, but he was a justice on the Supreme Court, and he said that
I know who you're talking about. Can't remember his name.
Yeah, he basically said that the Soviet Union had this expansive list of rights for its people, better than our Bill of Rights in the U.S.
People still do this.
But it was terrible.
Yeah, people still do this.
Like, the Soviet Union was not democratic in the slightest. It did, there was not any, well, there were certain rights that you had, yes, but there wasn't the same extensive rights that we saw in the US, or that they said that they had. So the fall, if they're gonna say that, oh yeah, the fall of the Soviet Union,
Scalia, you're talking about Scalia, aren't you? This guy.
Yes, Scalia. Yeah. He had this whole thing where he went up to Capitol Hill and he said that, and you know
why?
Expressed his opinion.
It's because he was an op. He was an op.
Yeah.
Scalia was owned the way that Clarence Thomas, Alito, John Roberts are owned.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I somewhat agree with what he said in that video, though, because he said his overall point was that we need to teach people about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all that stuff, which is why I have way more respect for Antonin Scalia than I have.
You should have none.
Clarence Thomas.
You should have no respect for any of those people.
I have.
Even 1% is too much, Art. I'm telling you. Him saying that thing is not his own idea.
Just because I have more respect for somebody doesn't mean I respect them. I would still
fair enough.
I have more respect for someone who just tells me to fuck off than someone who is passive aggressive about things. But it doesn't mean that I have respect for the person who tells me to fuck off. So, anyways.
Klansman. All right, sorry, I was trying to read chat. Same example I use with people here. If black citizens here had voting rights and a Klansman forcibly tried to stop them from voting, a paper says citizens have something, but bright thugs of the regime have other ideas. I mean, we saw this, well, we were prepared to see this, at least with this election anyway, with Republican militias that were ready to do violence at polling places. They were, supposed to be taking photos and sending in fraud reports. The issue, I mean, the reason that didn't happen is because Democrats didn't show up to vote, so they didn't need to. But I mean, they did in 2016. It's kind of like how when Trump was president the first time, they would blame every violent thing on Antifa, but it was actually the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, and they would just blame Antifa when it was their Nazi militias doing violence. It was our fault.
Yeah, and it was the thing that I particularly hated about that was just because it's a whataboutism, and it's just
that's all they got though. All they have are whataboutisms and fucking bullshit little delay tactics.
They'll say, oh yeah, well what about when the left did Chaz versus Chop, and I would say, how does that relate to what I was critiquing? And then they'll be like, well, what do you think about it? I'm like, how about you answer what my critique first with defending it or acknowledging that it was bad?
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this was useful. I think we got to a place where we pretty much agree now. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, I mean, I think I still think that we would need a proper organized military, and we would also need we would need to have militias who would be manning naval assets, so we could actually defend Alaska and stuff areas like that. But other than that,
I still think that by the time we get to a point where this system is remotely possible, the cultural revolution that I've said is required for this would be spread globally. It would need to be. There would need to be mass support for something like this, not only in the US, but in just global discourse. Whether or not other countries do it too doesn't really matter at the first point, but we need propaganda networks from foreign countries to not be constantly screaming about random bullshit. And honestly, we need to cripple the right-wing media apparatus entirely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I don't want to make predictions, because every time that the left has made a prediction in the past 10, 20 years, it has gone terribly. So
true.
I want to leave myself and everyone else in this chat open to the idea that, hey, in a couple hundred years when we're all dead, maybe it won't happen. Maybe we will be all alone in this world. And I want to prepare. I mean, I like to prepare for the possibility that things are going to go bad.
Expect bad, hope for good.
Yeah. Prepare for the worst, but hope
for the best. Yeah, exactly, because it hurts less when shitty things happen that way. But that kind of mentality, too much of it at least, leads to stagnation. A large issue that we have, especially with young people when it comes to politics, is that they feel like they don't matter. They feel disenfranchised, and to be fair, if you voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016, of course you feel disenfranchised. So do I. They literally admitted to cheating to get him out. But the issue,
and I mean, their votes don't really matter in the end, at least not right now.
Well, but they can't,
because they're being bought out by the billionaires and the millionaires. I mean, everything that they hear and see or being told is just fucking bullshit propaganda. So of course they feel that way. Of course they're fed up.
The entire media landscape is owned by the right. There's I can count on one hand the amount of left-wing content creators that regularly post content. And that would be Kyle Kalinske, The Majority Report, Sam Cedar, Emma Vigland, Hassan, Foch.
Do we want to include John Oliver and Jon Stewart or no?
No, those are TV. I'm talking online. TV is all bought out, and the fact that Jon Stewart and John Oliver still have the ability to say what they say is just prestige. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a fifth one that's a regular left-wing content creator. I mean, there's more. I mean, there are other content ContraPoints is excellent. Legia Miller. I wasn't trying to include me in it. Legia Miller would be another one. She's more of a liberal, but she does make good content. We've watched her before. I wasn't including me in that.
Yeah. No, I understand why you don't want to. I understand why.
I'm not big enough. No one there's not that many. How many people are watching me right now? 29.
Yeah, there and abouts.
It's a different thing, But we need more. We need more people in the media landscape, because so many, even non-political content ContraPoints is amazing, by the way. If she made videos more than once a year, I would be so happy, but unfortunately she doesn't. I would watch one of her videos on stream if it wasn't just content stealing, because I would have nothing to say, because her video on was it Opulence? Hold on. I need to know which one so I can recommend you guys the video.
You could legit just tell the chat, oh yeah, this is your homework, you're gonna watch this video.
That's what I'm about to do. I mean, whether or not they actually watch it, that's up to them, but
yeah, don't worry, there won't be a test on this.
2 videos. This one. So this is Envy. Her video on Envy. Excellent. Her video on Shame made me cry. Genuinely. The second one I'm sending. This one made me cry. 10 out of 10 content creator. We need more. All of you that are watching that have an interest, Art, you're on here talking to me and you're doing just fine. Regardless of whether chat's calling you an idiot or not. How many people call me that? I get You just have to ignore the haters. The haters are there because you're doing well and they don't like what you're saying. Why did I get banned from Twitch? Because I pissed off an incel by being right and by scaring him because I was right.
Yeah. I mean, but I also don't know if it would be productive for me to. I mean, like, I really like.
I'm just using you as like an example here. Like I was joking. Honestly, like you'd be more suited to like go run for like a local office or something. Even like a small, tiny seat in a local election. You don't even have to be like experienced to win these things. It's actually quite easy to win small local seats. All you have to do is actually go around town and like talk to neighbors and like, I don't know, say you'll fix a couple things. I don't know. It's a thought. But if not you, the many others that are watching.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think about the only real leg up I have is just that I'm white, and that's gonna make it less suspicious.
You have the privilege of being able to say things without them being scrutinized as much as other people. So you using your speech to try and convince people of things, to propagandize, to have political conversations, are going to have a higher degree of value to them, or worth rather. And beyond this, I just want to go and say, like, direct action is also as a thing, you know, like if you don't want to be a content creator and be a propagandist, which I guess I am a propagandist. Propaganda is a neutral term, you know, it's not good or bad. Technically I'm indoctrinating you. But just what I'm indoctrinating, it's just the thing that I'm indoctrinating you on is to not ever uncritically believe anybody. So like,
yeah, I mean,
question me too.
It's indoctrinating you to not you're indoctrinating people so they don't get
I'm inoculating you. I'm inoculating you from indoctrination. But like, if you don't want to do media, if you can't run for office, there's so many things you could do. I mean, first of all, !PV, go join Progressive Victory. They canvass, they door knock, they do phone banking. I did some stuff with them unofficially during the election season, and they were excellent. But also, like, I gave the example of there's a problem in my community, right? In my country, even. I'm not even talking about the United States right now, because I live in Australia. And in Australia, we passed the law that bans social media for minors under the age of 16. But this law doesn't include sites like Telegram, Kick, and Rumble. And so what am I doing? I'm literally in the process of drafting like a petition so I can go after Christmas, knock on some doors, get some signatures, and then bring it to government. Bring it to politicians that are running for government. I'm going to ask one of the Greens here, because they're the easiest ones to get a hold of like, hey, like, you're running, you voted with liberals on this, will you come on my channel and talk about it? This is direct action. And you can do this in so many ways. I mean, people who are still out there at the Palestine protests are engaging in this. So there's a lot you can do. You don't have to just talk, but the main point that I want to make is community. Talk to your neighbors, go outside, touch some grass, make friends with your community. If you guys don't have at least one neighbor's phone number that you can call in case of an emergency, fire, tornado, earthquake, break-in, some electrical issue, something, you should be able to call your neighbors and ask for help. And
I mean,
that's step one. That's just step one.
I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, I just want to say from personal experience, when you're trying to, if you're scared about going out and meeting new people, because I'm that way.
You can start small.
Really, just I mean, I know it seems scary, but like, I think the hardest part is going to be getting yourself out the door and making that first door knock. So just try and push yourself past it so you can get to that point you're talking, because once that happens, you can let your personality kind of just flow, and it'll carry.
Right. You're so right. You know why I know this is true? It's the same reason that I live stream instead of make videos. The fact that once I click the live button, it's there now, and the pressure's on. I don't feel anxious. But if I was a video essayist, which I would have liked to do as well, I would sit there and constantly criticize the things that I say. I would be watching myself, editing. Like, I'd get nothing done because I would be so anxious about the content that I'm producing. And I want to add to this is that people are really hateful online and malicious, but a lot of those hateful, malicious people that are this way online, in person, unrecognizable to the way that they are online. A lot of these people are actually really nice online, even if you're one of the groups that they usually like hate. You know, like you can.
I mean, a lot of them are just fucking cowards who are too afraid to actually like stand up and speak with their mind. They're just like, oh my gosh, what if they do this or that? Blah blah. Blah. You know, they're shy. They're insecure. Like,
Exactly.
They're all shy and insecure people.
This is a produced outcome. You are shy and insecure because the system is working to make you this way. It was built to do this. Because if you question yourself, then you are less likely to question authority. It's also one of the reasons so many people are unhappy. It's a lot of the reasons why so many relationships fail. People are unable to feel discomfort and to not react, to think about it, to do introspection, to critically analyze their thoughts, feelings, emotions, ideology. These are systems that are learned, that haven't been taught. And so people are reactionary, and this is what we get from reactionary people. We get people that are afraid, and then they act out accordingly. So again, step one to fixing that, step one to fixing how afraid of everything everyone is. Well, I mean, there's a couple things you could do, because people are afraid because from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they're being told that, you know, there's people trying to destroy their way of life. The two tips that I keep giving out, the first things you should do: one, talk to your friends and family, the ones that are willing. Try and see if you can swap phones with them. Be like, hey, look, there's a lot of like lies and misinformation. There's a lot of stuff on social media that's bad. Let's switch phones and just scroll through each other's feeds for a couple of minutes and then have a conversation about it. Even if you disagree with these people in these conversations, these interpersonal conversations, you should always try and be kind and civil. The civility politics shit I don't believe in online, but if you're doing this with family and friends, don't push too hard. Although I will say, you know, if you're scrolling through like, I don't know, your parents' phone and they're following a Nazi account that you recognize, it's perfectly fine to just unfollow that and not tell them. But second point is become an active member of your community. Even the parts that you don't like. Go talk to the cops in your town. First of all, like on a basis of, well, the cops often are the jackboots, so if the cops know me and like me, they're less likely to cause me issues, just off the bat as one. But, like, as long as they're not outwardly dangerous, as long as you don't feel like you would be harmed, talk to people, strangers, in your community. Be known. Become a person that is liked. Especially, by the way, if you're part of a marginalized group. Let's say you're trans, and let's say you pass moderately well, or you're a trans man, so no one thinks about trans people in that way, unfortunately, or fortunately for them, but also unfortunately in society. Go make friends with the people that would rat you out if they came to town looking for you. Because if you're friends, then you get to be Anne Frank.
Yeah, and I think it's better to be one of the good ones than an enemy.
Exactly. You want them to see you as one of the good ones. Now, you don't have, now you shouldn't act like it, but
yeah, like as much as that title that, oh, you're one of the good ones, is so patronizing and racist and awful, it's still better to be on their good side and not get murdered and stay, you know, with the living than it is to hold your ground.
By changing our messaging, like using the one of the good ones term ourselves is a step you could take. You know, like if, let's say, you are in a position of trust with you as a white man, right? Like you get you get privilege. Let's say you're out in public and there's a conservative like saying something about an whether or not they're undocumented, let's just pretend you don't know, an immigrant.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm going to call the cops. You can say, oh, no, I know them. They're one of the good ones. They're not even illegal. They were born here. I like, my family is friends with you get to say that, and someone might believe you.
And they're more likely to trust me because Caucasian
exactly.
Mayo face.
And you know, it's fine. By the way, Marquis, whether or not it's legal in the States right now has no bearing on what gets to happen in the future. They like, the current laws are dead on January 21st. Welcome to New America. Welcome to Russian oligarchy style fascism. Anyway, thank you so much, Art, for this conversation. This was actually quite good.
No worries.
And in fact, we ended with enough time for me to do one more segment, I believe.
Hell yeah. Okay.
All right.
I mean,
so I'm gonna
thank you
hop
for
out of
having me.
voice. Yeah, of course. I'm happy to have like a lot of you on, by the way, if you have things that you want to discuss. But yeah. All right. So I'm gonna hop out of voice now. Thank you.
See ya.
I hope you guys found that instructive, or you know, something. At least enjoyed yourselves. The Subway Surfers, excellent touch from me. I knew we needed something there. Now, moving on really quickly, because I really want to talk about this as it's so fucked up. So two things that have happened in relation to Luigi Mangione. So first of all, this is a different thing, but in relation.
The New York CEO who had his
Whoa. Sorry, I had volume up so high because Discord was so quiet.
Lamborghini pooped in by his employees after he canceled their Christmas bonuses has just learned that they have all resigned. Literally every employee from the sales staff to the shipping department emailed in their resignation to the CEO at the same time. The former employees are saying that the business will now grind to a halt as no customer will be receiving their orders in time for Christmas, or their orders at all. While a few of the employees did take other jobs, the rest of the crew is sticking around, pooling their savings, and they're going to start the exact same company without a D-bag at the top.
Even more based. And no, don't be sorry, Art. It was just the settings that I have in Discord. And if you want to poop in a CEO's Lamborghini, then go for it.
The CEO is in panic mode, and he's putting up these job postings trying to fill these vacant positions, but all he's getting back are these AI-generated resumes that these old employees are pushing towards him to waste his time so that he can't actually fill the positions. The sales staff is confident that they'll be able to bring all the clients from the old company to the new company.
This is what class consciousness can create. This is what happens when the working class works together and acts in a way where they don't assume that everyone else is out to fuck them over, when you can be cooperative. I'm not even sure which company this is. I'll check in a second. But when you can be cooperative, when you trust your fellow worker, then this is what happens.
And leave the CEO with zero revenue, which will effectively make him unemployed. And then he'll have to sell his Lamborghini, but nobody really knows what the resale market is on a pooped-in Lamborghini.
It's actually, I believe, Bungie? I think it's Bungie. Like, regardless of whether it's real or not, I don't care. But that's what would happen. Now, here's the other bit that's connected to this. Oh shit, y'all subconsciously programmed me to think the first name Luigi. I was thinking Golden Era Games Nintendo. I had no intention of using PFP Luigi related to Hitman Blugga Dang? What? Bungie used to make the Halo games. Now they make Destiny games. Now, Mom charged with terrorism for using the terms that were on the bullets that killed Brian Thompson: delay, deny, depose. 42-year-old Florida mother of 3 accused of threatening Blue Cross Blue Shield after being denied a medical claim on Tuesday is being charged with threats to conduct a mass shooting or an act of terrorism, according to the police department affidavit. The document also reveals the FBI is closely involved in monitoring supposed threats against health insurance industry. But also, by the way, this is from Ken Klippenstein, so go check him out. He's the one that keeps posting all of the shit and getting banned for it. So the woman, Brianna Boston, a resident of Lakefield, Florida, said in a phone call with Blue Cross Blue Shield, delay, deny, depose, according to the affidavit, told the company, "You people are next," based. Not the like, you know, I don't think she was actually going to do it, but like, don't make threats. You can be arrested for terrorism. I probably shouldn't have said based there, but, you know, it is what it is. Are the 3 words found on the bullets, blah, blah, blah. The affidavit refers to Florida statute, written threat to kill and injure, conduct a mass shooting, or an act of terrorism, seemingly extreme charge for what is alleged. Stefan Bonzik, the Lakeland Police Department, is a part-time member of the FBI Tampa Bay Safe Street Task Force. According to the FBI, Safe Street Task Forces are the vehicles through which all of the federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies collaboratively address violent crime. The affidavit says, based on the aforementioned statements by Boston and based off current events, I believe that these statements were meant to threaten the insurance company by using United Healthcare CEO's homicide to her advantage. The affidavit believes that there is sufficient probable cause to charge Boston with threats to conduct a mass shooting or an act of terrorism based on the recorded phone call. This is fucked up and bullshit. And this is what I mean by they hate you. The bourgeoisie hate you. The capital class hate you. The rich fucking hate you. Well, I mean, Florida is a garbage heap of injustice, but this would have happened in New York too. You weren't here earlier when we looked at the fact that they're like the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, is hosting a group therapy session with 175 CEOs because they're freaked out. And like talking about how they're going to make sure to have extra security and intelligence to protect industry leaders. Do you have any ideas on more affordable ways for Americans to access the health industry? Well, I mean, it would literally save the government money to do healthcare for all. So, like, free public healthcare cost comparison. I'm just comparing it to other countries. I shouldn't have wrote comparison. Cost in relation to current private system. If I was on Twitter, I could tell you somewhere where I had this, but okay, here's a study. Let me make sure this is actually like related. Okay, so improving the prognosis of healthcare in the United States. Although healthcare expenditure per capita is higher for the United States than any other country, over 37 million Americans are entirely without health insurance, blah, blah, blah. This is from 2020, by the way, but the ending would still apply. Contrary to the popular misconception that a federal healthcare system would restrict provider selection by patients, a single-payer system integrates all providers under a unified financial framework. Really, restructuring eases in-network and out-network distinctions, as well as the issues of providers declining to accept individuals based on their insurance. Patient choice will, in fact, dramatically be expanded with the uncoupling of employment. Where is this about cost? Cost. Single-payer universal health care is the potential to improve the quality, cost-effectiveness, and accessibility of medical services. Our projections indicate that shifting to this would specifically generate net savings across a wide range of expenditures and financial options. Objections to single-payer health care on the expectation of rising costs are therefore mistaken. So, free public health care, literally cheaper and better. You can't sell the idea of tax-funded healthcare to the U.S. Actually, yes, you can. After Brian Thompson got shot, how many more people are talking about single-payer healthcare, even on the right? A lot. A lot. Abolish the health insurance industry entirely. We need to get rid of it entirely. It's the existence of private health insurance is bad for health care in general. And yes, we came to an agreement. We weren't really all that much in a disagreement at the Islam. Canada has an open market and also has universal health. So do we in Australia, and that's the problem. Get rid of the open market. It should only be public health care. The existence of a private sector as well as public healthcare only serves to make the public healthcare shittier. Just like how private schools funnel money away from public schools and make public schools shittier, it's the same concept that happens in healthcare. It's exactly one-to-one the same. Here's a former insurance executive discussing it. Well, actually discussing the killing of Brian Thompson. Let me see how interesting this actually is. Never mind, it's not. It's not. You only have so many doctors and they want to make money. Well, to be fair, again, that's a capitalism problem. Hold on, I have some more time, so let me bring up a couple segments just to touch on. So, did you guys see that AOC was trying to be on the House Judiciary Committee, and Nancy Pelosi was trying to stop her? Well, Nancy Pelosi fell and ended up in the hospital in Luxembourg after trying to stop AOC from becoming chair of the chair of the Judicial Committee. And I just think that's funny. This will be a David and Goliath battle over Dems not shooting down every opportunity to make our lives better. Well, yeah. American docs don't make a ton unless they're doing plastic surgery. I mean, doctors in general make a lot of money, so. We talked about a little bit before in that we have an issue with insanity in this country. This is from a Monmouth poll. Donald Trump made some statements suggesting that he can suspend some laws and constitutional provisions to go after political enemies if he's elected. Do you see these statements as something he will seriously do if elected, or more of an exaggeration? 48% in December say that he will. 47 say exaggeration. If Donald Trump did suspend some laws and constitutional provisions, would that bother you a lot, a little, or not at all? 22% said not at all, and then another 22% only a little. That's insane. To get away, like taking away your literal rights. Are you okay with that? Yes, that's what America says. 44% of America says yes, I'm okay with that. 36% of Republicans, apparently. Ah, yes, here we go. By party ID. It's just so fucked up. Again, the issue with everything here is, as it always is, capitalism and the profit incentive. So, I'm going to cut today short. Tomorrow I'm going to go for a long time. I got some stuff to do today as well, and it's just really fucking hot. Tomorrow will be much nicer. But thank you for everyone who tuned in. And thank you again to Art for hopping on and having a wonderful conversation with me. I thought that was excellent. And I will see you all tomorrow.